You could be seated. Thank you.
There he is. Mr. Lau.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just pulling up our parking database, so it'll take me a moment to get that up.
I do have Malort on standby for this event, courtesy of Food Ferry. If you like, I'll take a shot and you can verify it. I will do it right here on camera. They're single serve shots of Malort. I am not doing enough to get hungover when I stay home on Saturday night. I'm not doing it. I've got standards. And we're off with a bang. Imagine 4 more hours of it.
Okay, let's go ahead and call the Michael Lau matter. Mr. Lau is here. Mr. Reynolds is here for the people. I asked for everybody to appear today for 2 reasons. One, we're going to have a vehicle impound hearing at Mr. Lau's request. He filed a motion with the court as permitted by section 777 of the Boulder Revised Code to contest the validity of an impound of a vehicle that was impounded last week. But I also, during the conversation that I had with Mr. Lau last week, and Mr. Reynolds was here for a portion of that. I'm not sure he heard the entire amount.
On the 11th, I believe.
Yeah, I guess it was the 11th. But when we had that conversation, I think Mr. Reynolds was able to hear a good part of that. And at the end of the conversation, it became apparent that there were so many different issues pertaining to Mr. Lau's vehicles, not just this one particular vehicle, but a number of vehicles, that I thought it would be worthwhile to have not only Mr. Reynolds here, but perhaps people from parking services who may not have any engagement on this particular tow, but might want to engage with Mr. Reynolds surrounding what happens with the other issues that are pending for Mr. Lau. So my purpose in having everyone here was perhaps have you all could have a global discussion outside my presence and see if there was a way to resolve some of those matters. And if not, then to allow this hearing to go forward, and then we could schedule other hearings as necessary. Mr. Lau has the right to contest any parking ticket that's been issued, and also has the right to contest impounds that have occurred. And the first step that he's taken is to contest the impound that occurred in connection with this vehicle that was on the tow list and that was ultimately towed. And that's the vehicle with the license plate 6386618. So, Mr. Reynolds, I'll turn to you. Perhaps you have more information than I at this point.
Your Honor, I do believe that we are going to be proceeding essentially directly to the impound hearing for that vehicle. Just before stepping into the courtroom this afternoon, I did have a brief conversation with Mr. Lau, and he was asking me some process-related questions about what this hearing will look like. And so I said that you would be the best person to answer those sorts of questions, even though I could probably try to do it. It's probably best to do it, have you inform Mr. Lau of what this hearing's gonna look like and what, and so that's the only thing I'd like to bring up, but we're ready to proceed to the hearing.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Reynolds. So I'm gonna just pull up the Boulder Revised Code and just discuss that briefly with the parties then, so that everybody's on the same page here.
Maybe every time we hear parking. I mean, the first video is about an hour.
So section 777 of the Boulder Revised Code provides a mechanism for a defendant who's had their vehicle impounded to request a hearing on the validity of the impound. And that's what we're proceeding under here, Mr. Lau. And what this does is it initially places the burden on the prosecution to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the tow was proper. And that means that they had a legal basis by which they had the authority to order the towing of your vehicle. If the prosecution proves by a preponderance of the evidence that the towing was proper, then the amount that you were ordered to pay in connection with that towing would be made an order of the court. As you'll recall, I reduced the balance that you had to pay in order to get your vehicle out of the tow yard, so that you could have the vehicle and it wasn't going to accrue any additional fees. If I determined that the tow was valid, whatever amount that you had or that was ordered for you to pay previously on that will then be an order that you'll have to pay. You've got your vehicle already out, so you won't have to pay any additional that you've already paid to Marv's Towing, but there won't be a reimbursement for the fees that you paid to Marv's Towing. So that's where things stand. Most people who have their vehicle towed want to get reimbursed if they don't think that the towing was proper. So if they had to pay out of pocket to Marv's Towing, whatever that amount, I could order that that owner of the vehicle be reimbursed, but only if in fact I determined that the towing was improper. Does that make sense to you?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Right, so that'll be what we'll focus on in this hearing, and we'll start with that. It looks like Mr. Reynolds is ready to proceed. Is that accurate, Mr. Reynolds?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Are you ready to proceed on that issue, Mr. Lau?
Yes, good afternoon. Yes, Your Honor, I'm ready.
Okay, so Mr. Reynolds, since you have the burden of proof, if you'll go first, you can call witnesses as.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, we call Ms. Devon Kissick-Kelly to the stand. I did check to make sure that there weren't any cords. Looks like it's all good.
And Ms. Kissick-Kelly, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. And whenever you're ready, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Kissick-Kelly.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last?
Devon Kissick-Kelly, Kissickkelly.
And I guess I want to maybe just address one thing right up front is you and I work together. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Is that our existing professional relationship? We've known each other for now a number of years, correct? Is there anything about that existing professional relationship that would make you testify one way or the other way here today?
No, sir.
Okay, well, thank you for saying that. And where do you work?
The Boulder Municipal Court.
And what do you do at the Boulder Municipal Court?
I am the court administrator.
And how long have you worked here at the court for?
7 years.
And how long have you been the court administrator for?
About a little over a year.
And what are some of your duties?
So I take care of the budget. I do the planning of the court for years going forward. I ensure that the day-to-day operations run smoothly. I work with the judge on policy and procedures.
Thank you. And I guess before we delve into the facts of this case, want to just ask you kind of a similar line of questioning about your relationship with Judge Kahn. How long have you known Judge Kahn for?
7 years.
And you work almost on a daily basis with him, isn't that right?
Yes.
And your existing professional relationship with Judge Kahn, did that impact one way or the other your testimony here today?
No, sir.
Okay, well, thank you. Just, it is slightly unusual having the court administrator testify. In your capacity as the court administrator, do you happen to communicate with parking services from time to time?
Yes. When there's a meeting or something that pulls away the staff, the clerks that generally take calls and things like that, then I step in for that period of time.
And are you ever involved in communicating with parking services about like a specific tow of a vehicle?
Yes.
And how would that come about?
If I were to take over on the phones because other staff members were doing other things and they called in for a tow, then I would take care of the tow like a clerk, any other court specialist would do.
Thank you. Are you familiar with the term scofflaw list?
Yes.
What does that term mean?
Those are tickets that haven't been paid,
Okay.
that are outstanding. Scofflaw is someone who's evading the law.
And what does it mean to be on the scofflaw list?
it means that your car is eligible to be towed.
And is it fair to say it's eligible to get towed because it's just accumulated a number of unpaid parking tickets?
Yes, it would need 2 tickets and $125.
At least 2 tickets that total at least $125 before somebody's on the scofflaw list?
Yes, before they get on the scofflaw list.
And when an individual in their vehicle is placed on the scofflaw list, does the court send out any sort of notifications?
Yes, we send out a courtesy letter.
What's a courtesy letter?
A courtesy letter basically says you have these outstanding citations. If they're not paid by this date, then you're subject to go on the scofflaw, which would be an additional $25. If you're on the scofflaw and your car is towed, then there's an additional $50 tow fee.
Okay. And that's the courtesy letter.
Yes.
When a vehicle actually does get placed on the scofflaw list, is there any other sort of a communication from the courts to that individual?
Yes. So the courtesy letter says if you don't move forward and pay the citations, then you're going to go on the scofflaw list. The scofflaw letter says you have not paid the citations. You're now on the scofflaw list. Your car is eligible to be towed.
Okay. And when Parking Services calls the court and they say, hey, I think you might have a car that is on the scofflaw list, can you walk us through kind of the court's process for how it determines whether or not that is the case and what communications go back to Parking Services?
So while the officer is on the phone, I would ask for the plate number, then I would put the officer on hold. At that time, I would look the plate number up in CVI to make sure that the registered owner matched the registered owner that we have in the system. I would then look in the system to see that a scofflaw letter, or that a courtesy letter and then a scofflaw letter had been sent and that they were on the scofflaw list.
And what method of mailing does the court use for those letters?
First class mail.
So you confirm that the individual, the registered owner, is on the both on CBI and on the registration, that the letters were sent out. What happens next in terms of the court's communication with the officer in the field?
So then I would get back with the officer. I'd ask them to verify the VIN so that I could make sure that the car, the name, the car, the plate, the VIN all matched. After checking the VIN, I would, if everything matched up, then I would authorize the tow. We would add the $50 fine on, and I would get the towing officer's ID number, their name, so that they're associated with the tow. And that would be, we count how many tickets and tell them what the total amount is.
I see. And were you working on October 11th of 2024?
Yes.
Did you happen to receive a call from Parking Services that day about a vehicle that was in the vicinity of 290 Pawnee with the license of 6386618?
Yes.
And did you check to see if that vehicle was on the court's scofflaw list?
Yes.
And was it on the list?
Yes.
And was it eligible to be towed?
Yes.
And did the court send out that courtesy notice to the registered owner like you described before?
Yes.
And where does the court get the address to mail those letters to?
To the Colorado Department of Motor Vehicles.
So if somebody is, when they register their vehicle with the DMV, they also have to register like where they get mail?
Yes.
And it's on the individual's responsibility to keep that address updated?
Yes.
And did the court also send out a letter? They sent out the courtesy letter, did it also send out a letter stating the vehicle had been placed on a scofflaw list, on the scofflaw list?
Yes.
I'm just going to approach with what's been marked as People's Exhibits 5 and 6, copies of which have been furnished to Mr. Lau, emailed, and also in hard copies. And these are just the courtesy notice and then the scofflaw letter. And so I'm just going to approach. And Ms. Kissy-Kelly, if you wouldn't mind, just taking a moment to look at both of those documents.
Okay.
And do you recognize those documents?
Yes.
How is it that you recognize them?
One's a courtesy letter, and then the other is the scofflaw letter.
And are both of those letters addressed to Mr. Michael Lau?
Yes.
And are they pertaining to the vehicle with the license plate 6386618?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor, I'd move to admit both Exhibits 5 and 6 into evidence.
Mr. Lau, do you have any objection to those two exhibits being admitted into evidence?
Your Honor, not knowing the process and procedure, do I get to question her or do I have to wait till the very end?
You do get a chance to ask her questions as cross-examination. If you have questions about that particular exhibit, before you agree to it being admitted, you could ask some questions, and that's called a voir dire on the exhibit. So if you'd like to do that right now, if you have a question specifically about the
Yes, Your
exhibits,
Honor, then I would like to.
just keep it to those two exhibits, then you can ask questions about the exhibits. And when you're referring to them, have you provided copies to?
I have, and yes, and voir dire is for the purpose of admittance, not like cross-examination on the substance of.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm going to try to give Mr. Lau a little more.
Ma'am, are you a whore?
Background on that. What Mr. Reynolds has asked me to do is whether to admit these two exhibits. What you can do is you have the right to object to the admission. The objection should be based on something that it's not in her personal knowledge, that it doesn't actually represent what it says it represents, not as to the content or whether these tickets were valid or anything of that nature. It's going to be very narrow as to the exhibit itself. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, Your Honor.
So if you've got questions, and you can start with Exhibit 5 if you have questions about that, and if you have questions about Exhibit 6, you can ask Ms. Kissick-Kelly. Later on, after Mr. Reynolds is done with all of his direct examination, you'll have a chance to do cross-examination of Ms. Kissick-Kelly about more broader ranging issues. Does that make sense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so go ahead.
So,
You can stand, you can sit, whatever's more comfortable for you.
thank you. Ms. Kissick-Kelly, you stated the process that you go through and so far, so I thank you for clarifying it for my and other residents' benefit.
Oh my God.
The courtesy letter you sent up, does
gonna be a
it
long
look
night.
something similar to these that I've just received in handwritten forms? This arrived last week. Or the courtesy letters are, I've also received other letters that are more formal from the court, from the Bowdoin Municipal Traffic Court, whatever, that are all typed out and actually uses postal metering instead of, I guess, so. Are
You can
these
approach her and
type-
show her so she can
Oh,
see what
sorry.
you're looking at. You can show those to
Are
Mr.
these-
Reynolds if he hasn't seen. them.
Yes, no. Just
That
let me
really,
ask,
really
are
sucks.
these the
I mean,
type of
really,
letters you sent
really.
out to me? It's not specifically that one,
So these are all sent from Community Vitality. These aren't sent from the court. So
so
no,
that's a courtesy from the
This-
Vitality.
from Community Vitality, I'm not familiar with what letters
Okay.
Community Vitality sends out. I'm sorry.
So, Your Honor, so these are the ones I received just last week.
Thank
And
you, Megan.
it's clearly states it's from Vitality, but these are not post metered. I got these last Tuesday.
Okay.
Also then, Ms. Kissick, so, is there a proof of mailing on the letters? Sorry, one is a courtesy letter, the other one's called what, pickup list letter? Are there proof of mailing? That they've been sent out or it's just sent out via a postal meter with the traffic court's letterhead and so forth?
So
Hopefully they arrive.
So we use a third party. We send them a Excel spreadsheet. They print them and mail them. And we keep track of every letter that is mailed out of the system. So it's tracked not only within the T2 system, which is the parking system that we use, but we also keep a separate spreadsheet that list all the letters that we've sent out.
But you don't have confirmation that it's been received.
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all the question I have. There are specific things that I will ask later on involving the validity and accuracy of the fines and the citations and so forth. But Your Honor, you have already stated that those are not questions that I should answer. So I will save that for when it's appropriate.
Do you have any legal objection to exhibits 5 or 6 being admitted into evidence then?
I do, Your Honor, because there is no proof of, while I'm sure the third party does an excellent job, there is no proof of me having received it in any way. In fact, I do subscribe to a USPS informed delivery service, and these never showed up during roughly that time period. So whether they were mailed out or
all objections
in the USPS system, or whether they were, so these 2 specific ones I have not ever seen, have not received. Your Honor, you would also know that on earlier occasions, I have indicated in court that there's other ones that I've received, but these 2 I have not.
Okay, Mr. Reynolds, do you want to respond to that?
I'm not, I have nothing to respond to. I just would move to admit these exhibits.
All right, exhibits 5 and 6 will be admitted. Mr. Lau will be given the opportunity to make argument and present testimony surrounding the issues present as to the notice that was provided by those 2 exhibits. But exhibits 5 and 6 will be admitted into evidence. You can continue, Mr. Reynolds, with your direct examination.
One brief line of follow-up questioning for Ms. Kisickelli. Ms. Kisickelli, when these letters are generated kind of like per standard course of business, is that accurate?
Yes.
And so the court probably generates a lot of these letters every year.
Thousands.
When the letters are generated,
Kisickelli.
how is it determined what address to mail those letters to?
Whatever the address is, the car is registered to with the DMV.
And so does the court have access to a DMV system that then pulls that address from?
Yes,
And is that what happened in this case?
yes,
And is that what happens in every case?
yes.
And if somebody moves from that previous address at the DMV to another location and they might receive some mail at that location and they don't update their address with the DMV, what could happen?
So at that point, the letter oftentimes would be returned to sender, so we would get it back. We would look in the DMV system again to see if that address had changed. If it had changed, then we would we would change the address in the system and we would resend those.
Did the court follow all of its normal processes in this case?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions for Ms. Kisickelli.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reynolds. All right, so Mr. Lau, do you have any questions for Ms. Kisickelli beyond what you asked her previously about the 2 exhibits?
No, Your Honor.
All right,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Kisickelli can step down. Thank you.
I'm just gonna retrieve these minutes. Thank you. And,
Well done, Kisickelli.
Your
Well
Honor,
done,
I'm,
Walt.
telling Ms. Kisickelli that because I'm done with her in my case in chief and Mr. Lau didn't have any further questions and it didn't seem like the court did, that she could leave the courtroom.
Yeah, you're released from your request to be present. I don't know that you were subpoenaed, but you're free to stay in the courtroom and watch if you'd like, Ms. Kisickelli, or you're free to go about your business. So. All right, go ahead, Mr. Reynolds, if you'd like to call another witness.
I would, Your Honor. I'd like to call Officer Fred Flesh with Parking Services.
All right, officer, if you'll come forward, I'll swear you in.
Kisickelli and friend Flesh. What the hell is going on in Colorado?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Officer Flesh. Can you please state your name and spell your last?
Is Fred Flesh, F-L-E-S-C-H.
And where do you work?
Community Vitality Parking and Access,
And how long have you, and you work for the city of Boulder?
27 years.
And what is your current position?
Lead Parking Management Officer.
And how long have you been the lead parking management officer?
6 years.
And what are some of your duties?
I lead the parking enforcement officers, and part of my duties as leading them would be helping them with abandons, in-ops, citations, and towing vehicles.
You anticipated my next question. So it sounds like sometimes you or your officers have to initiate the tow of vehicles.
Correct.
What are some of the reasons why people might get their vehicles towed?
Abandon, in-op, blocking driveway, vehicle blocking the lane of traffic.
Okay. And are you familiar with the term scofflaw?
Yes.
What does scofflaw mean?
Scofflaw is a list that is compiled of a bunch of vehicles, and these vehicles owe money from outstanding parking violations.
And so it sounds like that somebody might get placed on the scofflaw list because they owe money that is unpaid on parking citations.
Correct.
How much money in unpaid parking tickets does it take for somebody's vehicle to be placed on the scofflaw list?
$125 or over.
If you're out on the street doing your job and you encounter a vehicle that you might think is on the scofflaw list, what do you do first?
So the first thing I do is call the police department and tell them where I am, what we're doing. And then I call the courts to verify that all the information is correct and the vehicle would be eligible for impound.
And when you call how many times, if you had to put a number on it, just approximate, have you been involved in a tow involving a vehicle that was on the scofflaw list?
Thousands.
So when you call the courts to confirm that it's towable, what sort of information are you looking for?
So for me, from the prior testimony, the courts does a lot of processes in order to make sure the vehicle is eligible for impound. What I'm looking for is, does the VIN and the plate match up, and how much do they owe, and how many outstanding tickets do they have, and is it eligible?
And do you rely on that information from the court in order to do your job?
When it comes to a scofflaw, if the courts do not give us permission, we do not tow it. So yes.
Are you aware of the address 290 Pawnee in the city of Boulder, state of Colorado?
Yes.
How are you aware of that address?
We've had multiple complaints about abandoned in-ops and infractions there.
Would you mind just explaining for everybody, folks, what you mean by abandoned and in-ops?
So an abandoned vehicle is any vehicle that is parked on a city-owned and maintained street for 72 hours or more. A inoperable vehicle is any vehicle that is dismantled to the point where it cannot drive. A flat tire would be one of those examples, or it could have expired plates.
So you mentioned that at 290 Pawnee, there's vehicles over the years that you've become aware of that have had various parking issues.
Correct.
And at that specific address, are you aware of any other city code violations?
There are a lot of code violations on that street.
And generally, what are they?
Facing the wrong way, expired plates, 12 inches of curb, RV camper trailer. There's a couple.
And with regards to the actual house, is there a house at 290 Pawnee?
Yes.
And with regards to the house and not vehicle issues, are you aware of any code violations that involve that property right there?
Yes, I don't work for code compliance, but yes, there is a house on that block that has a lot of items on the front lawn.
Items like, what would you say? How would you characterize?
There is a lot of items, I'd say anywhere from trailers, boxes of various stuff in it, stuff that looks like big kegs of some kind of oil. There's a lot of stuff on that property.
And would it be a fair characterization that a lot of the items that are on the property around 290 Pawnee would be junk or trash?
In my opinion, yes.
And is it just a little amount of things or a lot of things?
No, it is almost every square inch.
Okay. Were you on duty on October 11th of 2024?
Yes,
And were you in the area of 290 Pawnee that day?
yes,
And were you involved in any tows of vehicles around that location that day?
yes,
And specifically, were you involved in the tow of a vehicle with the plate 6386618 Ford F-150?
yes.
I'm gonna approach with People's Exhibit number 1, copy of which has been finished to Mr. Lau digitally and physically. And Officer Flush, if you wouldn't mind just taking a look at this here. Do you recognize what I just handed you?
Yes, this is the vehicle that I impounded.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of the vehicles that appeared on October the 11th, 2024?
Yes,
At this time, I would move to admit People's Exhibit 1.
Mr. Lau, do you have any objection to the admission of that photograph of what's called Exhibit 1?
I need clarification first, Your Honor.
Of course he does.
The photo clearly shows some type of a metal. Is it a boot device on the rear wheel?
So you wanted to ask him that question, of what's on the photo? I'll allow you to ask him a question, so you can answer that question if you'd like.
so what you're looking at on the driver's side rear tire is what we call a boot. And we use that boot whenever we tow a scofflaw impound. That immobilizes the vehicle so we can do our job and get the vehicle impounded.
You use that device on just vehicles or vehicles and trailers?
Any vehicle, so a trailer would also be a vehicle.
On June 22nd, I, of course, do not recall whether you were at the location or not, but 6 of your colleagues were. MAF towing was already there, and there was no boot on a trailer that you tried to tow. And I don't think you received court's permission, but I'm back to the point. So this truck had a boot device to facilitate the towing. Whereas while earlier, in the middle of June, with several of your officers there and 2 persons from the tow company there was no boot device, no nothing. Would you care to clarify it? Do you just apply that when you need to exercise additional caution for your well-being?
I'm going to object at this point. I just don't believe Mr. Lau's questions have anything to do with the foundation that's or relevancy or authenticity of this
The
photograph.
relevancy is
Hang on just a second.
immobile. I could not have moved it.
But let me clarify for you where you are in the process.
Pardon me, sir. Your Honor.
This is kind of a legal distinction. It's important for where we are in the process, but it's probably not something that you've heard before, Mr. Lau. But right now, we're just focusing on the admissibility of this photograph, not what's happened before or what happened that day. Just the little question of whether it's admissible or not. Mr. Reynolds has to lay a foundation, which is that it's a picture that was that accurately depicts what that vehicle looked like that day. That's what he has to establish. That's a very narrow part of where we're at. And so what he's objecting to is you going into these other areas, which you can certainly present in your case or questions that you have for the officer at a later time. But right now, I'm going to sustain the objection that Mr. Reynolds has raised and ask you just keep the questions on whether this accurately depicts a particular vehicle. That's really what it's been presented for.
Yes, Your Honor, that photo does depict the vehicle that I own. But of course, until Mr. Reynolds emailed to me, I have never seen that picture before. Thank you, Your Honor.
But do you have any objection to that photograph being considered by me?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibit 1 will be admitted.
So Officer Flesh, when you observed
Start with.
this vehicle prior to towing it, was there any sort of was there any trailer attached to it?
This vehicle, no.
And was there any permit displayed on the vehicle?
No.
I want to talk a little bit more about, are you aware of Mr. Lau applying for a permit for one of his vehicles?
Mr. Lau applied for a vehicle for a trailer, but he never picked the permit up.
And so did the city agree to issue him a permit for that trailer?
So Community Vitality agreed to issue a permit for one of his trailers, yes.
And do you know if Mr. Lau ever supplied the license plate number for the trailer he was applying for that permit for?
To the best of my knowledge, he gave that license plate to our front desk, who would have then initiated the permit.
But it was for a trailer, correct?
Correct.
And in order for a parking permit to be valid, does it have to be displayed?
Yes.
And was there any sort of parking permit displayed on this vehicle?
No.
So when you were at 290 Pawnee on October the 11th, did you start a tow?
Yes.
What kind of tow was it?
Scofflaw impound.
And can you just walk us through your process that day? You get to that location, what do you do first?
So the first thing we do is call the police department, police dispatch, and tell them where we are, what we're doing. Then we proceed to call the courts to verify that the vehicle is eligible to be impounded. Then we start then we call Mars, and then we start the tow report that we fill out.
And how did you decide that you were going to check on that Ford F-150 to see if it was on the scofflaw list at the court?
So we were in that area checking for we have a list of abandoned inoperable vehicles that need to be checked on various dates. And we were in that area checking for abandoned and inoperable vehicles that were due for checkup. And this vehicle came up as a scofflaw impound.
And did you then call dispatch?
I called dispatch, told them where I was, what I was doing, and then I called the courts to verify.
And can you tell us about your conversation with the court?
So what I do is I call the courts, I tell them who I am, who I work for, give them the license plate, the VIN, and then they proceed to do their procedure.
And on that day, did you happen to talk to Ms. Kissikelli?
Yes,
And did she authorize the tow?
yes,
And did she confirm the vehicle was on the current scofflaw list?
yes.
And now, do you know why this particular vehicle was on the scofflaw list?
For outstanding citations, parking citations.
And
He is outstanding.
I'm going to approach with what's been marked as People's Exhibit number 2, copy of which has also been furnished to Mr. Lau. This one. And Officer Flesh, if you didn't mind just taking a look at this 2-page document. Do you recognize what I handed you?
Yes, that is a T2 citation report for the license plate of the vehicle that I impounded.
Okay, so it's the license plate of the vehicle in question here.
Yes.
And does that, when was that T2 printout generated approximately?
When was this report generated?
Yes.
This is the generation date. I believe this was a couple days ago.
Is it fair to say it was sometime last week?
Yes.
Do people's, what balances that they owe on parking tickets, is it possible for them to change over time, the balance that is owed?
The balance can change if they pay one citation, but not all the citations.
Okay.
But in this report, there is a quite large balance there.
And is it fair to say that T2, well, at this time, I've moved to admit People's Exhibit number 2.
Mr. Lau, do you have any objection to the admission of this exhibit?
Is that this one?
No, that's the tow report. It's the one with the blue.
It's the blue.
That's it.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, exhibit 2 will be admitted.
Now, does that report show outstanding unpaid parking tickets that this vehicle has accrued?
Yes.
About how many unpaid parking tickets does it show?
Six.
And the total outstanding balance, is it well over $125?
Yes, it is at 355.
So the court told you it's eligible to be towed. Then did you effectuate a tow?
Yes, the tow process was then started.
And when you do a tow, do you complete a vehicle impound report?
Yes.
And what's the purpose of doing that?
We do that so we can write down the date, the time, the license plate, all the legalities of the impound.
Fair to say it creates like, it's kind of like Parking Services version of like a police report.
Correct.
So did you do that in this case?
Yes.
I'm going to approach with what's been marked as People's Exhibit number 3. That's this one. Copy of which has been furnished to Mr. Lau. I'm going to hand it to Officer Flesh. Would you mind just taking a look at that? Do you recognize what I just handed you?
Yes.
How is it that you recognize it?
This is the report that I wrote on that day to tow the vehicle.
So that's this case involving the license plate 6386618.
Correct.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate representation of your tow report that you completed that day?
Yes.
At this time, I move to admit People's Exhibit number 3.
Mr. Lau, any objection to the admission of Exhibit 3?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 will be admitted.
And on that day, what was the outstanding balance on the vehicle?
$455
Where would you have gotten that number from?
from the courts.
And Officer Flesh, are you aware of correspondence that Mr. Lau has had with the city of Boulder with regards to this previously discussed permit for a trailer?
Yes.
And are you aware that he asked Margot Bigham in Community Vitality and communicated with her about that permit?
Yes.
I'm going to approach with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 7 and People's Exhibit 8. This is the and then this is number 8. So, Officer Flesh, if you wouldn't mind just taking just a bit of time and looking through both of those documents that I just handed you. And so do you recognize the multiple page document, the email chain there?
Yes.
And is that a conversation between Mr. Lau and various city officials about the permit for the trailer?
Yes.
At this time, I'd move to admit People's Exhibit 7.
Mr. Lau, any objection to Exhibit 7, just the email chain itself, not to whether it represents, but just that document itself?
No objection to 7.
Okay, Exhibit 7 will be admitted.
And then,
Sorry, the supposedly 2 tags were Exhibit 8, or was it part of 7?
the
2 tags supposedly.
2 tags are Exhibit 8.
this
Yeah.
is separate.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
7's been admitted. And then the document that we, just speaking with Mr. Lau about, the printout of the permit for the trailer, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And how is it that you recognize that?
This is the permit that he was supposed to pick up from Margot Community Vitality to put on his trailer.
And does it appear to be a fair and accurate representation of that document?
Yes.
At this time, I move to admit People's Exhibit number 8.
Mr. Lau, do you have any objection to the admission of the photograph or the copy of the two permits that were issued, which are contained in Exhibits 8?
I object, Your Honor, because once again, those were never received, never notified to me while they were.
That's not the issue. Remember, the question is, do these accurately depict that document? Not whether you received them or not, but just do they accurately depict what the permit might look like? You may not know.
Sorry.
You may not know.
I have not seen these permits ever before, so there's no way I can, and there is no, Mr. Fletch testified earlier that I supplied a VIN. Sorry, Your Honor, I know that goes to the accuracy of the testimony, but there's no such thing that ever happened. And with a blanket so-called form for that identify an address, which I'm thankful, but I've never seen these ever, and there is not descriptive enough to be useful in any way. So I object to it, but I understand, Your Honor.
And I'm going to find that they've established a legal basis for their admission. Whether they prove anything is a totally different matter, just that they are now admitted into the proceedings. So Exhibit 8 will be admitted.
And thank you. So, Officer Flesh, the permit that was issued but never picked up or displayed, what vehicle would that permit have applied to, if any, of the vehicles at 290 Bonnie?
There is a quite large black trailer that would have went on.
So would that permit apply to any other vehicle at that location?
No.
At this time, I don't have any other questions for Officer Flesh.
All right, so Mr. Lau, now it's your opportunity to ask Officer Flesh questions. You're not limited to just the exhibits themselves. You can just ask him questions that you'd like to ask. Now, Mr. Reynolds may have some objections on relevancy grounds, depending on what kind of questions you ask, but you can ask him any questions that you'd like at this point, and then we'll see where it goes.
Your Honor, if I may, for the sake of efficiency and time, will Mr. Reynolds be asking each and every one of them to do the same? And then I can address each one, or is Mr. Flesh representative of the whole Boulder parking in this particular situation?
It'll be up to Mr. Reynolds to decide who else he might call. Do you anticipate calling other officers?
I don't at
Okay.
this time.
It was actually an intelligent question.
So I don't anticipate calling any other witnesses in my case in chief. If Mr. Lau presents evidence, we might rebut it. But right now, this is the entirety of the witnesses. And then I was going to just ask to approach and then put the exhibits in order to keep them in one place. We don't lose track.
That sounds great. So it looks like Officer Flesh will be the only witness that he calls. When he says case in chief, he means in his presentation initially. If you provide evidence that he thinks, boy, I better respond to that, and Officer Flesh can't be the person because he may not have personal knowledge of that, he may call someone else after you've presented your case. But for right now, he's just offering Officer Flesh. So any questions you have that you can ask Officer Flesh. If he doesn't have
Someone
personal
send it to
knowledge
me.
of those, he may have to say, I don't know.
On IG.
And then you may need to call someone else to get that information. Does that make sense? If he wasn't there for an issue
He's
that
relying on
on
Flesh.
that a particular occasion, he may not be able to answer that question.
Yes, Your Honor, I understand. And then, once again, not knowledgeable about the procedure and process. After I question him, Your Honor, unless the city attorney want to introduce additional things, will you be ruling on this, or would this be my last opportunity to provide
Very fair
information?
question. When Mr. Reynolds is done asking Officer Flesh questions, he's going to rest his case. But I still will have not heard from you about your side of the case. So that'll be your opportunity to call witnesses. You can call yourself as a witness if you'd like to, and you can testify. So I won't rule until both sides have had an opportunity to present any
Yes.
evidence that they want me to
Yes.
consider on this vehicle impound.
That
Does
nails
that
it.
make sense?
Thank you, Your Honor, I understand now.
Okay.
Yes, I do wish to question
ahead.
Officer Flesh. So, back to my earlier point, your, whether you call it scuffle or whatever,
Oh, whatever.
you always boot first and then tow, or is it a discretion by you or your other officers?
So I'm assuming you're talking about the boot.
Yes.
Okay, so the boot only goes on scofflaws. It does not go on abandoned or inoperable vehicles.
The big, you call big black trailer that you referred to, that I have brought up earlier, that you've also referenced to, that does not fit into the SCAF law, a definition that is
I'm trying to be good.
termed something else.
And I already had
Not at
Malort.
this moment.
Thank you. Thank you for your definition of what's inoperable and abandoned and so forth and so forth. You also mentioned that there is a list of vehicles that's on the watch list that your officers then would make routine rounds to check on those vehicles. How is that list compiled? Because obviously some of my vehicles are in that category, obviously on the list, because your office has spent tens of staff hours every week covering my vehicles either with warning or actual citations and fines and so forth. How is that list generated?
So the abandoned inoperable list, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to.
Whatever, no, you said you have a list of vehicles on a watch list,
Yes,
your department's watch list.
yes, that would be.
How is that provided? Sorry,
Sorry, cut you off.
no.
That would be our abandoned inoperable list. And the way that is compiled or made is on a complaint basis. We would go to areas all over the city of Boulder and we get complaints on abandons and inoperables. And depending if
ABTs.
it's abandoned or inoperable, there's a different process. But then we would start that process depending on what the actual infraction is.
Do you,
I gotta look.
is quite relevant in the sense that, do you have, keep information, data on the complaints? Is it an unidentified caller, email to your department, email to Leo Pelly, or just flagging down one of your officers as they see you pass by? How is, what information is stored and also available on the complaints, the actual complaints file to initiate the city of Boulder, your parking department, do this watch list thing?
So it could be anything from our officers doing their normal routine patrol and a homeowner would come out and say,
What department?
that vehicle has been there for more than 72 hours. That
I would-
vehicle has expired plates.
I would make
It
him say
could be
parking
Inquire
department as
Boulder.
many times as I
It could
could.
be the PD dispatch, the CAD system that we enforce. It could be.
Sorry, I don't, PD, police department,
Correct. We do police department calls.
what's that? CAT, CAT
It's called the
system?
CAD system.
CATS?
CAD.
Oh, sorry, CAD system, okay.
It could also
Thank you.
be a call to our front desk. It could be an email. There's a lot of ways that we can get complaints about abandoned inops.
Is that information stored within your department so that just on situations like that, it has to be retrieved and justified?
It is stored, yes.
Your Honor, there is a very prevailing interest on my part to, of course, as the recipients of many of these citations, even on the morning when I came to traffic court, my vehicles were ticketed and so forth. So I would request the city of Boulder Parking provide that information that have them create that watch list. But that's also, of course, I will restrict it just to that general area where I am and not the whole city.
So what you're requesting is what's called discovery. You're requesting that
I'm sorry.
the city provide you with, whether it's got it stored in a database or otherwise, the information regarding the complaints that have driven the citations that have been issued to you on that particular block.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, because he said, Officer Fudge already stated that it is stored and it is maintained, so it is available.
At this stage of the proceedings, because we're already at a trial, I can't order it for this particular case because this case is going to be decided today based on the evidence that's presented today. It's always it's the responsibility of the parties to determine in advance what information that they might want, and so that it can be available to them prior to a hearing. This one was obviously put on a pretty short leash because it was an impound hearing, but nonetheless, that type of information can't be provided to you at this moment or during this trial. Having said that, if any of your other cases end up in trial and you want that information to be presented, you can make a written request of the prosecutor's office for discovery if we do set some other case of your parking tickets for trial. But for this case, I'm not going to order it because the case is already in trial and it would be something that the city can't meet a burden of providing discovery at this stage, if that makes sense to you, because we're already in the trial.
Yes, Your Honor. I understand, and of course, I accept the court's decision on this. But I have to wait because there are so many other vehicles already on the T2, thanks to Officer. I learned some of these terminology, T2 citation reports and so forth. And the reason we're here today is because while I was trying to come on my way to your court, Your Honor, this particular vehicle was towed. So do I have to wait until that is, my vehicles to be towed or whatever, to be back in court, or because I already am on insufficient T2 list, do I have the option of filing a motion with the court to address all these? Because I believe that would be a major time-saving thing, and also not only time-saving, for me, financial and aggravations, Your Honor.
Yeah, no, I think that's what I was trying to express when I was speaking to you last on the 11th of October.
Yes, Your Honor.
Which is that any other cases that you might want to set for a hearing or for trial can be set on your request. You can, the way your parking ticket works is when you get a parking ticket, you have the option of paying the ticket or contesting the ticket. And contesting the ticket can look like an appeal that gets filed with our clerks by email, but also can look like I want a trial in front of the judge. And if you make a request for a trial in front of a judge on any outstanding tickets, you're entitled to have a trial. So when we get done with this hearing, and we're dealing today, right now, just with the hearing on your vehicle impound, when we get done with this hearing, you can request trial on any other outstanding parking ticket that you have. Does that make sense?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then as part of that trial process, you can ask for discovery, and to the extent I deem it relevant and something that is discoverable, I will order that the prosecution provide that. But right now, we're only on this one case, this vehicle impound case.
Thank you, Your Honor. I hope I won't end up being a frequent visitor to your court.
Well, and I know Mr. Reynolds was about to say something as well, so Mr. Reynolds, go ahead.
Your Honor, the only point I wanted to make was I do think that there are time limits.
That's a little weird.
On contesting certain parking tickets.
There are.
So I just wanted to clarify that we're not telling Mr. Lau that regardless of whatever those time limits are, that any appeal that he files would be granted and he could be eligible to have a trial. That perhaps he might have missed his chance to do that.
That's a fair point to make. Whenever someone requests a trial, the prosecution has the right to object to the setting if they are beyond the deadline for which they have to request that trial. And in our court, I believe under ordinance, it's 14 days from the date that the ticket was issued. So there may be some legal issues that surround all of that. One of the reasons I wanted you all here today is so that you could have some discussion with Mr. Reynolds outside of my presence to see where things might stand with respect to all of those tickets. But right now, let's focus on this vehicle impound hearing. And then when we finish up this vehicle impound hearing, we can discuss some of those other issues. All right, so you can continue. You had a question for him. We went off talking a little bit about the data that's restored by the parking services relating to complaints. But if you want to continue with your questions for Officer Flesh, you can go ahead.
No, Your Honor, in the sake of time efficiency for all parties involved, especially the courts, I now look forward to Mr. Reynolds' position on the whole thing. Thank you, Officer.
Any other questions for Officer Flesh?
No, the city has no further questions, and we don't have any other evidence, so we rest.
Okay, so Officer Flesh, you can step down. Thank you, sir. And you heard Mr. Reynolds say he rests. That means he's done presenting his side of the case. Remember, we're going to be focusing just on the vehicle impound for this particular vehicle, the Ford F-150 with the license plate 638-6618, and only pertaining to the tow of that vehicle on October 11th. But if you have a witness that you'd like to call, or if you'd like to testify yourself, you have the opportunity to do that.
I'd like to testify myself and provide additional evidence or exhibit. I actually must thank Mr. Reynolds for providing me exhibits last Friday. And when I provided some feedbacks earlier this morning, Mr. Reynolds was very promptly responded to those. So I actually thank the city for at least providing sufficient information that I can try to base my case on.
All right, why don't you come on forward, then I'll swear you in.
It was responsive to my
Just for
feedback.
our record, we have Michael Lau here to testify. Mr. Lau, if you'll raise your right hand.
Oh, this should be good.
Do I stand? That's my right hand.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead and have a seat. And then, Mr. Lau, if you've prepared some notes, whatever you'd like to do, how you want to testify, just keep in mind that whatever you testify to, Mr. Reynolds will be able to ask you questions about that.
Yes, Your Honor. So, this specific vehicle that has been on the T2's citation report for, I guess, for months already. Started months ago, but was of course part of the vehicle and trailer that I've tried to use to satisfy the code enforcement compliance, which of course that the court has addressed on different occasion, but I was not the defendant. However, I have at least made early attempts, both unsuccessful, one by myself and one by Mr. Lecomte. But those were both moot, on it, as you stated earlier. I specifically, thanks to the PMOs from the border parking, I received, of course, multiple citations, warnings, and so forth. And then it was suggested to me, actually by one of the PMOs here in the courtroom today, that I should contact the supervisor, Leo Kelly, because the officer was able to see that some of the tickets were voided without any input from me. And of course, when I
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, were voided?
dismissed, voided.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I received no response from Mr. Pally, maybe he was too busy helping out with the Stone Canyon fire, as I've been informed during that time. Specifically, and of course, thanks to also one or more of the PMOs that are in court today, I received both this after a knock on my door that I responded, and also both attached to the multiple citations and so forth that I've received, a very condensed printout of Boulder, Colorado Municipal Court 7624, stating all-night parking of commercial vehicle, camper, motorhome, or trailer prohibited. So, sorry, beyond, I scribble notes on the side, but this is what the PMO.
I have that.
Yes.
I have the
Thank
Boulder
you.
revised code.
Thank you. So it is based on that, of course, and I have to read up on that. It's based on that I submitted, emailed the city manager asking specifically for because I was told that that's the case, for a permit for 30-day period for vehicles and trailer being used at 290 Pawnee. And so that was dated August 5th. And actually the email address for the city manager was also provided to me in writing by handwritten note by one of the PMOs. So I appreciate their information. I follow up with a email to the city manager on August 27th, but it was more a update. So I specifically request some permit, an overnight parking permit based on 7624 from the city manager. And because I haven't seen that from Mr. Reynolds, Your Honor, if I may.
So what is this document that you're wanting me to look at? And I'm
It
not
was
going to look at it
mine.
until we mark it and have to go through an exhibit process, Mr.
Oh,
Reynolds.
sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Well, we're going to mark this as Defendant's Exhibit A. And Catherine, do you have any? Actually, I've got it right here. I'm going to do it this way.
Thank you.
I'll give Mr. Reynolds an opportunity to look at it before I look at it. So, Mr. Reynolds, if you want to come forward.
Thank you.
If you want Catherine to make a copy of that for you, we can do that.
I can email it to you. You're welcome to.
Okay, I've seen it. I'm sorry, Your Honor, did you tell me to hand this to Karen?
If you need a copy, she can make a copy. Otherwise,
Oh.
we'll just allow it to be talked about by.
May as well. Would you mind, Catherine, to make a copy of this? Or you could scan it and email it to me too.
Yeah, I'll scan it.
And Mr. Lau, while she's doing that, I'll just explain the process is before I can look at any document, it has to be admitted into evidence.
Oh, yes.
Which is why Mr. Reynolds went through all those steps with all those other exhibits, and we'll hold you to that same standard.
He has the benefit of lots of experience compared to being done.
Yeah, that would be great. You can just label it Defendant Exhibit A. Here you are.
And that, if you upload that into full court, that would be the perfect place for it. Thank you, Catherine. All right, so why don't you tell me what this document is what it purports to be?
It is my very, based on suggestion by the Boulder Parking PMO themselves, at least one person, to contact the city manager to request permit for overnight parking. Of course, the end result, and I hope the benefit, would be that I would continue to receive all these parking citations and so forth. And because the 7624 specifically said commercial vehicle, camper, or motor vehicle, or trailer, it is my understanding that when I apply and should it be granted, that it would be applicable to those types of vehicles. Boulder parking was very, Margot, forgot her name, it's on my pile. She's the one that my communication with her is the one, she communicated with me first that, so it is based on that I received from Boulder parking the approval for the permits that I'm supposed to then go to the office, and they will even waive the parking for me to go pick up the two permits that I've never received. And I have never provided any VIN number and so forth to her, so so I fail to understand how Officer Fletch could have stated that I provided any VIN. Of course, there are
Let me
lots of.
stop you for a moment because I want to just address the admissibility of this exhibit. Mr. Reynolds, any objection to Exhibit A?
No.
So now I can look at Exhibit A. So you can hand me your copy, or you can keep it. If it's been uploaded, I can probably look at it. But Exhibit A will be admitted. You can keep that. I'll look at it in the system here. Hang on a moment. I have to refresh so I can do that. Okay, I've reviewed Exhibit A. So you can continue as your testimony. It's been admitted.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. So approximately, I guess, the following week or thereabouts, of course, I'm sure I'm not privy to any of the internal city manager versus city attorney versus city parking, Boulder parking discussion or communication. So I do not have the knowledge nor benefit of that. However, I did receive an email from Boulder parking said the permit's been approved and I should just go down there and get it and have it and I asked that it be emailed to me, and she said it has to be laminated, so forth. During that period of time, Boulder parking has been at my location on, actually, once again, they have spent over multiple 10 staff hours per week issuing me citations, so forth. When on June 22nd, if I wasn't there, one of my trailer would have been towed. Of course, this is before the city manager's approval of the permit. But that goes to my mindset that if I am not there watching, guarding my actual property, it can actually simply be towed and away, impounded and so forth. And Boulder parking already demonstrated that on June 22nd. So you can, in the earlier exhibits that the city has submitted, exhibit 7, it shows the email communication I have with the Boulder parking supervisor, Ms. Margot, sorry, should have taken that. And with some of my updates and her response and so forth, that was, I guess, extended until the code enforcement court date on October 8th, I believe. That's also with you, Your Honor, but that was, of course, a different case. So I am definitely of the belief, once again, because it was authorized by the city manager and the applies to vehicles, campers, motorhomes, and trailer, that I would be fine. However, of course, the citations and citations and warnings continue for over a week after the city manager's approval. And of course, Your Honor, you have that information in your system as well. I try to have this, and once again, thanks to Mr. Reynolds earlier, last Friday communication with me. It is my understanding that now specifically on this particular truck, some of the fines and interest accrue to justify the so-called toll because it's $455 outstanding owing. To me, it is invalid. I actually raised that via email with Mr. Reynolds early this morning, and he came back because it only applies to camper and trailer, which of course is actually not that. I believe it's just a subset of 7624. So I believe that comment is incorrect. This comment is incorrect to begin with. But in addition, even if I was going to stay with Mr. Reynolds said that camper and trailers are what was allowed and cover under the permit, even if we're going to work on a very limited version of that, I wish to submit exhibit 2 and 3.
Let's call yours letters, so we'll be to B if you're wanting to do a defendant's exhibit.
Sorry.
The next one would be B for you.
B. So I have 2, Your Honor, these are already also in your system, but I only compile them for my benefit because it helps me keep track. So I wish to submit additional exhibits showing sometime during the August 2nd to 7th, I'm sure there are additional ones, period, and a more recent one on the day of the toll, October 11th. I wish to submit these to the court.
Why don't you hand them to me so I can mark them? Which one is going to be this?
So this is
Exhibit
the
B?
older one.
We'll call this Exhibit B.
And
And
this is the more recent one.
Okay, we'll do this as Exhibit C, and I've marked the exhibits on the back. We'll do the exact same thing that we did with these before, is we'll have Catherine upload these into our system. And then Mr. Reynolds can have access in that way. So if you'll upload those and then give them back to the defendant, that would be great. You can continue to sit.
Thank you.
And while we're waiting for that, you can continue talking about
Okay,
them.
but I have
and
to
then
wait for
yeah.
Mr. Reynolds to actually have a chance to look at
Yeah,
this.
so if you want to just hold on for a minute or two, it
Okay.
won't take her long to just get those uploaded.
Due to the way the scanner's grabbing it, it's very faint.
I can,
Mr. Reynolds may want to take a quick look at what he's got there then.
Exhibit B.
It's the other one.
See, I haven't tried scanning it yet.
Okay, I'm not gonna have any objection to these exhibits. So you haven't tried scanning it yet, so I'll hand Mr. Law back exhibit B.
thank you. These are copies issued by Boulder Parking, so.
And because Mr. Reynolds has seen exhibit B and C, you can go ahead and talk about them. He doesn't have any objection for, so both of those exhibits will be admitted and you can go ahead and discuss them.
So, thank you, Your Honor. So even based on Mr. Reynolds' very restrictive and limited definition of the overnight parking permit, which I believe is inaccurate. However, even based on that very limited, Boulder Parking has already determined that vehicle to be a camper because it's a camper RV trailer parking PROH, so it's prohibition or something like that. So, and those are in both, B and C, exhibits B and C, both before the tow and during the tow. And so so I fail to see any validity in the city's argument that the city manager's permit only applies to certain things. And once again, even with that, Boulder Parking already determined those are in the proper category. So proper category as in it being a camper. So hence once again, then some of the citations, fines, and interest accrued are all during the city manager's permit period. So I felt either Boulder Parking is not aware of that and try to overlook that and submit that information into the court system, either in an ignorant way or in a biased way. It is right now not my call, but the fact that the city manager's permit should have been superior to some of these hearsay, whether this is enough, that is abandoned or whatever. So it is based on the city manager's approved permit that I believe most of the some of the fines and interest and so forth were not factual. Hence, even the whole toll should be dismissed and I be reimbursed not only the court payment earlier, but also for the toll fees, which I do have a copy of from Marv. And Marv was very accommodating because of course, it's my vehicle. Everybody have certified that. However, because it was not a Boulder County issue, title, and so forth, I actually had to make additional appointments with Boulder County Clerk,
I'm right here.
which is very difficult on short notice because they work 4 days a week and usually it's a 2 weeks wait. But somehow I was able to and was able then to pay a substantial toll title verification and daily storage fee and have since already have retrieved my vehicle. That I thank the court at least to allow me to facilitate that. In closing, unless the city, unless Mr. Reynolds or maybe even Boulder Parking can offer some insights as to why the city manager's
What
approved
parking?
permit can be overlooked based on my not trusting to go
we
down
overlooked
there
this
to
judge.
get a printed permit that has no VIN information, no
All this
nothing,
crap
and so forth.
boils down to
Because I
that.
was trying to protect and guard my property, I failed to understand any rationale in justifying the toll to begin with. Hence, in this case, I await for Mr. Reynolds to question me if that is the process.
That is the process. I'm going to take a 5-minute recess just to step out. I've got one thing I want to communicate to
Okay.
another entity to let them know I'm not going to be available for
I'm sorry.
something else, but that's fine. We'll take 5 minutes and then I'll be back here at 2:35. We're back on the record, Kathy?
That's it.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we had just finished up with the direct examination from Mr. Lau, obviously providing his own testimony. Mr.
And it was
Reynolds,
awesome.
wasn't sure if you wanted to conduct any cross-examination, but if you do, we can ask Mr. Lau to come back to the witness stand.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Lau, to come back to the witness stand. And I'll just remind you, you're still under oath, sir.
Yes, Your Honor, go ahead.
Have a seat.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lau. Mr. Lau, it's accurate per Defense Exhibit A that you emailed the city manager, Nuria Rivera Vandermeide, on August the 5th to ask for a permit for vehicles and trailers. Is that accurate?
Permit for vehicles and trailers, yes.
And on August 13th, Margot Bigham from Community Vitality, the customer service supervisor, emailed you back.
Yes,
And she let you know that they could provide a permit, correct?
based on, sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but yes, her email more or less suggested based on the discussion with the city attorney, yes, the
Yeah.
permit's been approved.
And she actually said that they could provide a permit for your trailer, correct?
No, sorry, I don't that, because what I requested from the city manager is for vehicles and trailers. So I do not read that as whatever she sent me. Of course, to me, it was either an approval or denial. So I do not read it the way that you are suggesting. Because I asked specifically for vehicles and trailers, I was not told that in any specific way that, oh no, it is just one or this or that or whatever. I was asked, so sorry.
And so, Mr. Lau, you use the email address laudesigns@gmail.com, correct?
That is correct.
And you check it regularly?
Well, not as regularly as I should. Thank you.
Well, that's what you used to email the city manager on August 5th.
Yes, I did.
And on August 13th, you received an email from Margot Bigham,
Yes.
correct? And in that email, she stated, "We have been notified by the city attorney's office of your permit request for your trailer. We have accommodated this request and will permit, and with a permit that will expire on Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Please display this permit at all times on your trailer. This is an administrative permit that is being issued with the expectation that the property of 290 Pawnee Drive will be brought into compliance with Boulder Revised Code 633 trash accumulation." That's an email you received on August 13th, correct?
I'm sure you're reading it correctly. I'm sure you've read what I have received.
And then that same day, you asked Ms. Bigham to email you the permit, correct?
Correct. The permits.
And
Yeah.
and then she replied to you the next day that you had to come and pick it up, correct?
Something like that, yes.
That it's laminated?
She said it has, because she indicated it has to be laminated. Of course, not being familiar with the city manager's permit, and there's no description of it anywhere at any Boulder website that I am aware of. I am not aware that one would have to physically go down there, wait in line and receive it while my vehicles risk being towed by Boulder Parking. And the fact that they have ticketed me additionally for over a week after that day, that confirms the sanity of my mindset.
And Mr. Lau, and then she also said that you needed to provide the plate number for your trailer, correct?
Something like that, yes, that is correct. But of course, Mr. Reynolds, Boulder Parking has all my vehicles.
Mr. Lau, I'm asking the questions.
Thank you. Yes, my apology.
And you had additional communication with Ms. Bingham where she indicated that you did need to physically come down to the office to pick up the permit, correct?
Something to that effect. You're correct. You're likely correct.
And it's accurate that you never picked up the permit, correct?
When I see that I'm still receiving tickets and so forth.
Mr. Lau, it's a simple question. Did you pick up the permit from Community Vitality?
I decided not to leave my premise to go down to pick up the permit. You are correct.
And in fact, you testified today that today is the first time that you've ever actually seen People's Exhibit number 8, correct?
That is correct, because nothing was ever emailed or shown to me.
And it's accurate that People's Exhibit number 8 says, valid if only properly and visibly displayed on the passenger side dash, this side up, correct?
Based on that permit that I've only seen this morning, emailed by you, of course, one would arrive at that, but there was no indication.
And it's accurate that Community Vitality told you that in order for the permit to be valid, you have to pick it up, correct? Yes or no?
I would have to answer no, because if it is approved by the city manager, I fail to see unwritten, unspecified rules or whatever procedures. Are you able to show me right now in court or subsequent to it, the procedure that parking has in fulfilling a city manager's permit? Because the suggestion that I should leave, once again, my property, so my vehicles could be either ticketed and then towed when I'm not there, is beyond my understanding of what a city manager's approval would be.
And Mr. Lau, it was described to you multiple times by Ms. Bingham about how to go and get the permit, correct?
I have no way of ascertaining that is factual or that is just a procedural convenience for Boulder Parking.
And the permit, even if you had picked it up, only applied to a trailer, correct?
That is not correct. That's not what I requested from the city manager.
Might not be what you requested, but in your communications with Ms. Bingham in the city, that it was approved that you were eligible to pick up a permit for one trailer. That is what the communication between you and the city was about this permit, correct?
I believe she was in error, as consistent with the other errors committed by the Boulder Parking PMOs, giving me multiple citations.
You understood what she was telling you, correct?
I understood what she may be suggesting as a limiting thing, but once again, that is not what I requested. And also, if I would have received an email from the city manager or from the city manager's office once again, whether it's a denial, approval, or some limiting thing, I would, of course, have to accept and or maybe challenge that. However, this was, her response to me was a direct, I believe, result of me emailing the city manager. So, Mr. Reynolds, I fail to understand your thought, because the fact that she emailed me something more limiting, to me is, could be just verbiage, or whatever, but that is not what I request, from the city manager. And once again,
So
she would have only received something from the city manager.
So you emailed the city manager with a request for a parking permit,
Vehicles and trailers.
and then approximately a week later, you get contacted by parking services. And it's your position here today that whatever parking services told you in that communication didn't really apply to you because it wasn't what you requested.
No, Mr. Reynolds, sorry, I obviously have not been proper nor elegant enough to state my position. The email that I received from Ms. Margaret has to only come from the city manager's office through some internal communication system, which I do not have access to. So it is my genuine and sincere understanding that my overnight parking permit was approved, period.
So
And while there is a procedural aspect to that she suggested, I have not seen anywhere that is an absolute requirement, nor would, at that point in time, because of actions by PMOs trying to tow my vehicles already, there was no reasonable expectation for me to just leave when they know when I won't be there and have more of my vehicles, trailers towed.
And today is the very first day that you have ever seen the actual permit that would have been issued if you had picked it up.
That is correct, and only through you that I've seen that. I have never seen that.
I don't have any other questions.
But I just want to clarify. I even requested, as you see in my email, for her, my email to her, for her to email it to me, but she said no, it has to be laminated.
And you didn't like that. You didn't like that answer.
That I have to leave my house and risk boulder parking coming to tow my vehicles again. I fail to see why a rational person would not try to protect his or her own property. Mr. Reynolds.
Okay, no more questions for you, Mr. Reynolds? Anything else that
What
you'd
does
like
he
to
do to
testify
stop?
to, Mr. Lau?
I don't see what
Without
being
going
at
over things
home
I've already
help.
heard, anything new that you'd like to address based on the questions that Mr. Reynolds had?
Your Honor, I guess I wish to actually rest, but Your Honor, I need to have, just like on Friday, when I was my first time in traffic court, and Your Honor, you were gracious enough to offer the hold on the on the toll. That time frame expires after today. I would like to know, regardless of the outcome of this specific one vehicle, how are we going to address that? Because Your Honor, you did indicate that, and while I can submit additional things that the city may object to on the other TUs and so forth, my property once again remain in severe risk. They told, Your Honor, they towed my vehicle the morning I was informed by you earlier in the week
sure does.
to come to traffic court. So my confidence and my belief in what boulder parking will do is probably minimal. In fact, some of those officers were spent quite a few hours total at my property this past Monday. Is that the 14th? The 14th, trying to initiate towing of my vehicles and so forth. And it's only because that they receive, they ask for permission, and the court, because of your hold, denied that. They actually then call both the police to try to have one of my license plate confiscated. But that's the same vehicle that they have ticketed.
Let's stay on this.
T2,
Let's stay on
right?
this particular impound hearing, which has to do with just this one vehicle. When we're done with this hearing, we can address the other issues. But for right now, let's focus just on this, because we have a court hearing and we're making a record on that one issue, which is whether or not the impound was proper of that particular vehicle on October 11th. So if you have additional testimony about that, you can go ahead. And then I'll give you a chance when we're done with this hearing to discuss those other issues. But right now, we're focused on this.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick summary then. I believe I have the valid approval from the city manager, hence some of the charges and citations and late fees and whatever are invalid. So it was false information being supplied to the court to facilitate the tow on this vehicle. Thank you, Your Honor. I rest.
Okay, you can step down then. Thank you, Mr. Lau.
Thank you.
And when you say rest, you don't have any other evidence on this issue then?
Not right now.
Okay, Mr. Reynolds, any rebuttal case from the people?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to give each side a chance to give a very brief closing argument. So Mr. Reynolds, if you will, closing argument, Mr. Lau, is really just a summary of the evidence that I've already heard. So that's why I say it can be very brief. This is not an opportunity to present any new evidence or anything new for me to consider. It's only a summary of what testimony I've heard, what the exhibits show, that type of thing. So Mr. Reynolds, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people believe that we've proven the validity of this tow beyond a preponderance of the evidence. The tow is authorized under 772A10 because this vehicle was on the scofflaw list, was eligible to be towed. Ms. Kissikeli provided testimony that not only was the scofflaw letter in accordance with the requirements provided, but a courtesy letter as well. And this vehicle was properly on the scofflaw list. This issue involving the permit is a bit of a red herring. While Mr. Lau was eligible to obtain a permit for a trailer, per his own testimony, did not complete the process. And if you take a look at People's Exhibit number 7, that contains the communication between Mr. Lau and the city with regards to that particular permit. I will note that it's always referenced to, it needs to be attached to a trailer, not vehicles and trailers in the plural or anything like that. It's very, very specific. Mr. Lau did email, per his exhibit provided, the city manager asking for a permit for all of the vehicles and all of the trailers. There was a compromise that was reached that is clear in the, from prosecution exhibit 7 that the city would provide him with a permit for a trailer, but he just never obtained it and was never displayed. And how can parking services know if a vehicle has a parking permit if the permit isn't actually displayed? And he says that he was just too worried about his vehicles to leave to go down and pick it up. This was back in early August, in mid-August. It is now middle to late October. I doubt that Mr. Lau has just not left his house for any other reasons to go to the grocery store to do life's necessaries. So I think that excuse is really doesn't hold much water. And regardless, even if there was a permit, it applied to a trailer, did not apply to the vehicle in question for this impound hearing. And so we would submit that we've proven beyond a preponderance of the evidence that this impound was proper because we showed that it was properly on the scofflaw list. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Lau, closing argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. In closing, I like to once again dispute what Mr. Reynolds has said. The city Board of Parking clearly stated and extended the the so-called permit. And the last communication, of course, that was even furnished by the city, by Mr. Reynolds, was that that after was confirming that the trial had my email that the court has rescheduled trial for October 8th, and she confirmed that there will be. She confirmed that yes, thanks for reaching out. So this is Exhibit 7. Once again, I believe that the city submitted. So it would definitely appear to me that me and Boulder Parking were, at least the supervisor in law, is in communication and full understanding of what's happening. The fact that the PMOs decide to continue ticketing for over a week, and then also as soon as this October 8th date is over, on my way once again to traffic court here, Your Honor, the vehicle was towed, and once again based on frivolous citations.
It was frivolous.
And late fees. Once again, even based on the city's, Mr. Reynolds' definition that it only applies to in a very limited way, the tickets that the court already has that I've submitted as B and C clearly shows that Boulder Parking consider that a camper and all that stuff. So for them to issue citations one way and then send in to me misinformation to deceive the traffic court into allowing the based on information that they supplied to allow the T2 and all that stuff is to me a very serious concern. It also questions further on the check and balances or even the internal audit trail that the city has in regard certain audience and so regard certain, in this case, parking, but and when parking even comments on code enforcement, as Officer Fletch asked earlier, it is so unclear to me as a pro se person how this always the presumption of guilt by, in this case, by me, by the city can be valid. With that, Your Honor, I rest.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Your Honor, I got the city's exhibits.
Yes, please, if you'll bring those forward.
And I just want to note that this is 1 through 3 and then 5 through 8 that we never offered 4. So you're not missing anything. But 4 doesn't exist in here.
Oh, thank you. Okay, that helps because I do keep a list, but I hadn't realized that we didn't have a 4. So thank you for that. And I'm going to take just a couple of minutes. I'll go off camera, but I'm going to stay right here just to make some notes, and then I'll come on camera and give you my findings. Okay, I took a few minutes to review the exhibits and the testimony that was offered here today in the hearing with Mr. Lau. This is reference the impound of the Ford F-150 truck having the license plate 6386618. And this impound occurred on October 11th of 2024. The defendant requested a hearing as to determine the validity of the impound, and thus, in a sense, requesting the reimbursement of any fees that he incurred in connection with that impound. So the hearing was conducted in connection with that request under section 777 of the Boulder Revised Code, and I'll just briefly highlight what section 777 states. It says the owner, and subsection A says the owner of a vehicle impounded by the city pursuant to this chapter is entitled to a hearing regarding the impoundment. And then subsection 77F talks about the court's responsibility as the hearing officer. And it basically says is if the court finds that the impound was proper, then it should uphold that impound and order that any fees that were incurred be the responsibility of the defendant. If the court finds that the impound was improper, then it should order that those fees be reimbursed by the agency that caused the improper impoundment. And in this circumstance, the burden of proof is on the prosecution to prove by a preponderance of the evidence, it's not a beyond a reasonable doubt standard, it's a preponderance of the evidence. That just means just ever so slightly tipping the scales in favor of the prosecution, that in fact the impound was proper. And if the city meets its burden, then I have to uphold the impound and not reimburse any fees. So that's where we start with the status of this hearing. The testimony that was offered in connection with the city's case in chief was offered by Ms. Kissick Kelly, who is the court administrator, and by Officer Fred Flesh, who is the parking management officer, the lead parking management officer for the
A round of applause for
Services
Kissick Kelly and
Division,
Fred Flesh.
and has been working for the city for
They
approximately
did a great
27
job.
years. I found both of their testimonies to be very credible on the issues.
So did I.
And frankly, I don't believe there's a great deal of dispute about the testimony that was given by Ms. Kissick Kelly as to the process that she engages upon as a court administrator, and in particular in this case, because she was the one that authorized the tow of the defendant's vehicle. But Ms. Kissick Kelly did demonstrate through her testimony that in fact a letter was sent by first class mail to the registered owner of this vehicle under 6386618 license plate number. She identified that the registered owner was the defendant, Mr. Lau, and it was mailed to the address that she secured, and that the system that she utilizes secures from the Department of Motor Vehicles database. And under section 267 of the Boulder Revised Code, I think it's important to point this out because there could be some discussion about that. But under section 267 of the Boulder Revised Code, it's subsection C2 that says the notice allowed by this subsection is sufficient if mailed to the address provided by a government vehicle registration office. And then under section 267D, it talks about this creation of the scofflaw list. And it does require that the scofflaw letter, the list of vehicles that can be picked up and towed, how that can be processed by the court. And it basically indicates that if a vehicle has not paid citations that have been issued by the deadlines imposed by the citations, then those tickets become overdue, and any overdue citation can create a vehicle going onto the scofflaw list. And in fact, People's Exhibit 5 is a copy of the letter that was sent to the last known, or to the registered owner of the vehicle with the license plate 6386618. That's Mr. Lau at 100 Silver City Road in Dumont, Colorado. I will point out that it doesn't require that the person receive this. It requires that the city send it to the address that is shown in the Department of Motor Vehicles records, and that's what occurred per the testimony of Ms. Kissick Kelly. So Exhibit 5 establishes that, as does her testimony. So there can be no question that the vehicle in question here had, at that time that this letter was sent, which was August 29th of 2024, had one, two, three, four, five citations that were outstanding and were overdue and had not been paid, dating from August 5th through August 19th of 2024. There was some testimony from Ms. Kissa Kelly describing the court's standard or its policy regarding the towing of vehicles, and she indicated that that letter doesn't go out unless there are two or more citations and that the value of the outstanding balance exceeds $125. That's not required by the ordinance. That's a policy directive from the court. The court will just point out, but the ordinance does not require any certain amount. It simply requires that there be an outstanding ticket that has not been paid, and that the city then comply with this. For practical reasons, the court doesn't send out scofflaw notices when the balance is below $125 or the number of tickets is less than two. But that's not an ordinance-driven circumstance. That's a practicality-driven circumstance. In any event, it's clear that there was a basis upon which the scofflaw letter should have been sent. It was sent, so that burden of proof from the prosecution has been met. The question that has gathered the most attention during this hearing is the question raised by Mr. Lau, which is that from his perspective, parking services should not have been issuing citations to him during that time frame because he was given permission by the city manager's office by virtue of an email that was sent ultimately by the parking services division that said your trailer, a trailer has a right to have a permit. But I think I want to make it really clear what's required. And Mr. Lau did testify and did provide some testimony surrounding his emails and his view of what section 7624 of the Boulder Revised Code requires. And I will point out that all of the citations that the court saw in Exhibit 2 relate to this particular vehicle and it being a camper that was in violation of section, I think it says 7623. I think they were all 7620 and 7623, but that the violation being a camper that's parked in violation, it's parked on the street in violation of that rule to have a camper that's parked on the street. And the photograph in People's Exhibit 1 is really a photograph of the truck. There's no dispute that that's the truck in question, the F-150, and it has a camper on the top. It's not a trailer in the sense that people would traditionally think of a trailer. That's something that gets towed behind a vehicle, but it does have a camper shell on the top of a truck. And so it was issued citations during that period for being parked on the street as a camper. And then what Mr. Lau points out is his view of section 7624 of the Boulder Revised Code gives him the right to have that vehicle parked and that those tickets should not have been issued. And so turning to section 7624, it says all night parking of commercial vehicles, camper or motorhome or trailer prohibited. And it says, talks about no commercial vehicles. That's part A. That's really not applicable to this. But section 7624B says no camper, motorhome or trailer shall be parked on any street except as follows. And subsection 3 says in compliance with the terms and conditions of a permit issued by the city manager. And so there's been a great deal of testimony offered regarding this permission that Mr. Lau construes as giving him permission to park that particular vehicle during that period in August and all the way through that month. That gives him permission to be there. And the city provided some testimony surrounding that, but mostly provided the email exchange between the defendant and Ms. Bigham at the city manager's office and parking services division. Exhibit 7 is pretty clear. And starting at the bottom, because that's when this email chain begins, the first email that is there is on August 13th of 2024, and it comes from Margot Bigham, the customer service supervisor at the City of Boulder's Community Vitality Division. And it is in response
Margot
to
Bigham?
an email that Mr. Lau
Really?
acknowledged having sent to the city manager's office on August 5th. And it says, "Dear
Is it a
Mr. Lau
requirement
and
to have a
and Mr.
ridiculous
Comp,
name to work there?
we have been notified by the city attorney's office of your permit request for your trailer. We have accommodated the request with a permit that will expire on Tuesday, September 10th. Please display this permit at all times on your trailer. This is an administrative permit that is being issued with the expectation that the property of 290 Pawnee Drive will be brought into compliance with Boulder Revised Code 633 trash accumulation. The permit can be picked up at the Community Vitality Office at 1500 Pearl Street, number 302. Please schedule an appointment so that we can have the permit ready. If you choose to park in the garage, we can validate your parking." And then it says, "Thank you, Margot Bigham." There is a response on August 13th from Mr. Lau. It says, "Thank you for granting the permit. Can you please email me the permit? I've already been delayed by the many citations, warnings by your staff over the past several weeks and have been running behind to get things done at the location. In fact, your staff was in the area this morning looking for my trailers to tow and impound. Please email the permit." And then there's a response on August 14th from Ms. Bigham. "Hello, Michael. We are unable to issue this permit virtually as we will laminate the permit for you. I will inform the enforcement team about this permit. Please schedule an appointment to pick up the permit." And then she goes on to say in another email, "Hello, Michael. I forgot to inform you that we require the license plate number of the trailer that we are permitting. You may provide this at the time of pickup of the permit or prior to pickup." And then on the 19th of August, there's a follow-up from Mr. Lau. "Have you informed your enforcement team about this pending permit? I received 4 fines and 2 warnings from your PMO number 366 on Friday, August 16th at around 3 p.m. This is in addition to the several fines, warnings I received from this officer on August 13th. Your officers have told me on several occasions that once the outstanding fine exceeds $125, they can tow and impound my vehicles on site. They, in fact, have tried to do this in late July. This officer 366 and other officers have been in my area frequently over the past several months. I have been told that Leo Pelli has been instrumental in that directive. Please confirm that recent fines issued will be voided and no tow or impound action will be taken before my court date. Should that be beyond your responsibility, I will direct the issue back to the city manager and municipal court." And then that was August 19th. That same day, Ms. Bigham responded, "Michael, yes, I did inform them, but you must have the physical permit adhered to the trailer, which you are required to pick up at our office. The link to schedule an appointment is in my signature below. Additionally, you need to provide the license plate number of the trailer you will be using the permit for." And then there's another follow-up from Mr. Lau. "Does the permit also cover 72-hour and other issues? Officer 366 just told me it's unrelated to the overnight permit and I'll still be getting tickets." And then it also indicates again from Michael that the court has rescheduled. This was on September 10th. There wasn't a response from Ms. Bigham on the August 19th email. "The court has rescheduled the trial for October 8th. I trust you'll notify your staff accordingly. Please let me know I have to contact city manager, the city attorney's office. Thanks." And then there's a response from her about that trial date. The crux of this is about the permit. The 7624 requires that if you get a permit, it has to be displayed in compliance with the city's authorizing that permit. It's very clear from this email chain that number one, you have to have a physical permit that has to be adhered to the vehicle. That's what was instructed by Ms. Bigham, and that there had to be a license plate attached to that. That's why she wanted him to come down to the office, and she required that he do that. He did not do that. He acknowledged that he did not go down and get the permit, nor did he adhere it to his vehicle, and nor did he provide a license plate number. And so it's very clear that it wasn't in compliance with the exception that would be in place under section 7624, subsection C of the Boulder Revised Code. And it's not up to the court to engage in some philosophical discussion as to why that would be required. It simply has to be complied with. And it was very clearly not complied with the terms and conditions of a permit issued by the city manager. And in fact, it never actually got issued because the defendant never went down, gave his license plate number, and picked up the ticket or the permit. So it wasn't formally issued. It was authorized. She was authorizing it, but she put the ball back in the court of Mr. Lau to give a license plate number and to come and actually get the permit so that it could be displayed, so that the many hundreds of people who might work for the city can see that permit when they are issuing tickets or making decisions about what to do with respect to a particular vehicle. So it's clear that there is no exception that applies in this particular circumstance, and that's in connection with the various tickets that were issued during that time frame. I will point out that at least one of the citations was issued before there was even this communication by Ms. Bigham to the defendant. Her response was on August 13th, and there was one ticket that was issued on August 7th. But nonetheless, there was never compliance with the actual permit. There was not a valid permit that would exempt the defendant from having these citations issued. And so, because of that, there's no exception being applied with respect to those tickets that were issued. And because the city actually provided evidence that it did send out not only a courtesy letter, which was not required by the ordinance, but the scofflaw letter that it was sent to the registered owner. The vehicle was properly on the scofflaw list, and therefore the tow was proper on that date, which was October 11th of 2024. So I am finding by a preponderance of the evidence that the tow was proper. I'll try to summarize all this in a written order so that everybody has it. It may take me a week or so to get a written order out, but I wanted to get an oral order out for the parties in connection with this particular case. Any questions from you, Mr. Reynolds?
No, Your Honor.
Any questions from you, Mr. Lau?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so that takes care of that one vehicle. When you were here on that Friday, which I guess was October, but that must have been perhaps the 7th or, no, it was October 11th. October 11th, when you were here that Friday afternoon, I had a printout of all of your other vehicles, citations that had been issued to other vehicles. We had a fairly lengthy conversation about those, and I said, well, let's get everybody here so that we can at least address the impound, got your vehicle out so that you wouldn't have any additional fees associated with that. The fines that have been issued by the court in connection with that are now fines that you are required to pay. So even though you've paid some of that balance still exists. And I gave you a stay on a further impoundment of that vehicle. I didn't waive those fines that have been imposed. I just reduced the balance that you'd have to pay to get the vehicle out. And so you still have to deal with that vehicle and the amount that's owed on that so it doesn't get towed another time, which I don't want to happen. I've tried to make it clear to everybody. My preference is for vehicles to not get towed because that creates work and expense for people that work for the city and for Marv's towing and also for defendants. And so if we can avoid a towing, that's the best process in the court's mind that we can engage on. Sometimes there's a way to resolve these issues of outstanding violations without having to have a vehicle towed, but it is the mechanism by which the city utilizes to enforce outstanding tickets. So that's why I wanted everybody here so that there could be some ongoing discussion between you and Parking Services and Mr. Reynolds to see if there's any type of agreement that can be reached. And if there can't, then we will take the next step, which is to see which of those tickets you have the legal right to pursue a trial over and any other equitable mechanisms that I might employ to prevent towing. But I'm not sure that there are going to be. I just simply wanted to make sure that all the parties were here because when I conduct those Friday afternoon sessions, I'm doing it with the understanding that I don't have all the parties here. I don't have the parking services folks here. I don't have a prosecutor normally in the courtroom. I'm trying to get people in a position of where they can get a little bit of relief from the court, take responsibility for their tickets, and then not have their vehicles be towed. So without being able to do that, when there's a lot of tickets outstanding and knowing that there's been some back and forth regarding your responsibility for those tickets, that's why I invited everybody to be here for this. I don't know that, given the status of where we are right now, I think Mr. Reynolds would have told me at the beginning of this if there was some type of agreement that had been reached in the last 10 days. So I'm assuming that perhaps there hasn't been.
Always open to having a conversation, but there's no agreement.
Okay. Do you all want to have a few minutes? I can be here and we can recall these cases if you want to take a few minutes to discuss these together, if it's a good time to do it. Obviously, you now have the benefit of the court's ruling on this permitting issue, and that might inform additional discussions. I don't know if it will or not, but it certainly gives both sides an understanding of how I view that.
Like I said, Your Honor, I'm always happy to talk to anybody,
Awkward.
really, and Mr. Lau is no exception. But, what the city wants is like trash and the junk to be gone and the vehicles not to be illegally parked. And this situation existed for so long that if Mr. Lau has a proposal, he and I now have our emails connected. I'm happy to hear any sort of proposal that he has, but I do think that the city has expended a lot of efforts, as Mr. Lau's pointed out, to try to get that kind of location and property into compliance. And I think that we're kind of at the point of like, we just have to take enforcement action if we're not getting voluntary compliance. So like I said, if Mr. Lau has some sort of a proposal to the city, that I'm happy to take a look at it and I can talk to parking services about it. But at this time, I just.
And was somebody able to print out for you the list of the vehicles and their current status as to what citations are outstanding and unpaid? I think that would be a good starting point for any discussions to making sure everybody has that.
I do have a kind of a list. I think that citations are attached to vehicles as more than like people. And so it's a little, so the system we can't just like type Michael Lau into a system and then it prints us out all of his outstanding tickets. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that.
But I think when I was here Friday, our staff was able to have a printout that went vehicle by vehicle. And so that maybe Catherine, you can work with, I'm not sure if you can do that, but it seems like somebody who was here on the 11th. Ooh. I know Greg was here that day and is not here today, but it might be something that both Mr. Reynolds and Mr. Lau would like.
I can work with parking services. I just want to make sure that whatever I don't want to, I have access to like a SharePoint site, and I can't just give Mr. Lau access to the SharePoint site.
Yeah, let's get that printed out so that at least that will show, and I think it'll be, and Catherine, you think you can do that for us? And get that to the parties? If there are going to be subsequent hearings or trials, I think it would be worthwhile to take a shot at setting those while we have everybody here who might be the people who might have to testify. That's the only thing that I'm thinking about as why it would be worthwhile to perhaps pursue this in the next, half hour to an hour, is to try to, if we are going to have anything that is eligible for a trial, then we could get those trials scheduled.
Oh, I don't know. Is Alyssa here?
It is a very laborious process.
See more of Kissy Kelly.
There may be some cases that you're
Officer
eligible
Flash.
to have a trial on the outstanding parking tickets. There may be some that are barred by that 14-day rule that Mr. Reynolds has pointed out. That's why I wanted each of you to have a list of those tickets and you could have a good discussion. And there may be some room to figure something out now that I've issued my ruling and you've had a chance to hear how I go about deciding these issues.
May I speak?
You can.
Your Honor, I of course remain open to working out and some understanding and some even progress plan with Mr. Reynolds' office.
October.
As you would
24th.
recall, I've been very receptive to both accommodate and actually try to honor the commitment I've made to Mr. Reynolds on another case, but that's involving the code enforcement case. So I remain committed to working out some solution or some
You need to become
more acceptable outcome between the city and myself. We are here because the vehicles, and of course, Your Honor, I respect your order on that, being really only serve the purpose of facilitating the code enforcement cleanup. So that has, first of all, the code enforcement is because we try to help the neighbor who was evicted, but that's a separate case. So it's still an ongoing challenge for me to not only honor the, of course, the court decision on the code enforcement case, but now have to continue to deal with the, when I get back home, will the vehicle already be gone type of thing?
Yes.
Or with the trailer with the contents that are
Yes, I
actually
think
for
that
load
question
up.
was answered today.
So, once again, it's back to we were at that Friday, my first appearance in your court, in your traffic court, Your Honor, is that how do we address the time period between this minute and with the city attorney, hopefully to come to something. And if, Your Honor, if you, of course, hopefully to facilitate us having an opportunity to do something, the timeframe for the code enforcement is roughly January 8th, 2025. It's the 3 months from the
Let's do this, before you start thinking about how you might want to resolve this. What I want you and Mr. Reynolds to do is to take a few minutes to each look at these citations that has been printed out.
Oh.
And I think Catherine's got you a copy as well.
Okay.
I want you to look at those. I do want to address the issue of my stay, which was, I made a request that I could not order parking services, but I made a request that they have honored to not tow any of the vehicles licensed to you, Mr. Lau, through today's date. I want to address that issue before anybody leaves today so that we can determine if there is going to be a course of discussions, whether I need to do anything further in that regard, because you're right. By tomorrow morning, struck midnight legally, since they've been abiding by my request, legally, they would not even have a request in front of them beyond midnight tonight. So I would like to at least readdress that before everybody leaves. And perhaps if we're going to schedule another hearing, then we schedule another hearing. But let me take a quick recess to allow you all to have that conversation. I do want to address that stay before we leave here today, Mr. Reynolds.
That makes sense, Your Honor.
All right, and I'll go off camera, and if we can go off the record, and then you can just team.
List of 5 different vehicles that have outstanding unpaid parking tickets. When I review this, it looks like there are 4 tickets that were issued in the last 15 days. So those would be eligible for a court trial to determine whether or not they were validly issued. The rest of them are they're outside of that time frame. So some are going back to about June of this year. And Mr. Lau and I, there was no agreement to be had with regards to either the tickets or the vehicles that are parked there right now. And so if he would like to, we're happy to have trials on those 5 parking tickets. And then if the city exercises impound authority on any eligible vehicles, then he could set those for impound hearings. It's a lot, but I think it's just kind of the hand that everyone has been dealt here. That there just isn't really room for the compromise. So that's the status.
And I will point out one additional fact for everybody to be aware of is that I was given a document that believe Leo gave to Catherine, which is a list of vehicles with VIN numbers and license plate numbers that it exceeds the 5 that we have here. And so while I was back there, I was looking them up in our system to see, and the reason they don't come up is because they're not, some of them don't have a customer name associated with them in our system, which means that we haven't gone out and found the registered owner to be Mr. Lau. Maybe he is the registered owner of those vehicles and we just haven't researched it through our system to go get a customer name, but they're not associated to his name. And so there are a few out there that also have some outstanding citations on them. I haven't gotten all the way through that, but there may be more than just these 5 vehicles with outstanding tickets, some of which may be within that 14-day window, some of which may not. And some which may be on a tow list, some which may not.
Yes, there are lots of cars over there. And I did tell Mr. Lau, he wanted assurances that this document from T2 was the end all be all of outstanding lat, and I told him I couldn't give him that.
And I don't think it is either.
It's not, it's clearly not. It's only the ones that are connected to your name through our system. And sometimes that's because our database our system hasn't gone out and retrieved the customer name associated with it as a registered owner. And sometimes because the registered owner doesn't match up with you. I don't know that because I don't do that type of work. It's obviously somebody in our team that would have to engage in that to try to attach all of them. But it looks like Mr. Pelly has provided this, and perhaps if he's comfortable with it, we could share that so you would at least know what vehicles they believe from the parking services with either VIN numbers or with license plate numbers. Looks like a lot of temporary license plates, but a lot of license plates that are in and around that area. That's what I'm guessing, that are in around 290 Pawnee. And they may be yours, they may not be yours.
Your Honor, you're conveying exactly what I asked Mr. Reynolds, is that, even with the benefit of the PMOs here and so forth, and they've been looking into the system, if at least we can arrive at, if these are the definitive ones, which I've received, of course, from her, whereas if there are additional ones, at least then, of course, in a hypothetical way, Mr. Reynolds even talked about a progress plan, and I actually said I am open to that, not necessarily in this specific weekly time frame that he has in mind, but at least I'm receptive to working that out. But thank you, Your Honor. So you help solve big question that both Mr. Reynolds and I have.
Okay, and I think Catherine's going to give you the same document.
Thank
She's done some work here, pretty quick work, by the way, Catherine. Thank you for that. I want to just point out what you're seeing. So it's 1 through 17. Some of these are ones that are already on this short list that you've gotten, Mr. Lau.
Okay.
So this longer list, some of them are here, but this longer list, it has all of the vehicles that Mr. Pelly and his team have identified. There could be others, right? They're human. They may not have seen one, or there may have been one that was out that they didn't write down when they were compiling this list. But this is the list that we have to work with for right now. And what Catherine has done is gone in and said, some of them just have warnings. So there's no outstanding balance or even tickets that have been issued that are subject to any kind of trial. They're just warnings. And then there's some that have a balance owed. And you could just kind of go through and see one that has one warning, one that has one ticket. So you kind of just go through it. But what we'll be doing here at the court is I'm going to put one of our staff members on the task of trying to see who the registered owner is for all of these vehicles, so that we can attach that, if they are, at least in our system, so we can attach that to your name, so that when we do a printout of this kind of document down the road, and I'm showing the municipal courts printout, that it will also attach to these. So we're going to be doing some research here to try to attach that, but that may take us several days to get that information.
Of course, I would be more than happy to help on that as well. However, because if I own them, I do know. But once again, whether after your court staff compile the information, We, at this point, probably left with, trial, on whether it is 5 or whether it is more than 5, whether they already hit the T2 list or not, of course, I do not know, but of course, the court staff would be able to determine that.
All of these tickets that Catherine's, all these amounts, she's pulling from our T2 list.
Oh, okay.
So she's typing those amounts in because she's looked them up in our system and they have,
Thank you,
they
okay,
have tickets that are outstanding
okay,
and that have not been paid. And so I can go in through and ultimately pull up each one of those by license plate number or VIN number and see when the tickets were issued and those types of things. But I don't think I need to get to that because we've already got this printout that has at least 5 cases that could go to trial if there's a request for trial. And what Mr. Reynolds is talking about is if you look at the license plate for like 6386618, there were 2 tickets issued. One was a valid license plate citation and one was a camper RV trailer parking prohibited citation, both issued on October 11th. That's within the last 10 days. So that's if you request a trial on those 2 citations, and that's for that F-150 that was towed, you'd have a right to a trial on that. You'd have a right to a trial on a Isuzu, I think it's a box truck, an Isuzu that has a license plate, a temporary plate of 6505765. There was a valid license plate ticket issued on October 11th for that vehicle. You'd have a right to a trial on that. And then going down, there's one other that I see here for DNP Z37. And if I can find that on this list, I can tell you what kind of vehicle it is. That it looks like it's just a trailer. And that has that's one that it says October 11th, the camper, RV, or trailer parking prohibited. So that would be one that could go to trial. We could schedule all of those tickets for trial and have that occur on one day, assuming that everybody's going to be available who would be needed by the prosecution, because it may be a different parking officer than the ones that we have here in the courtroom, but we may be able to at least schedule trials all on one day.
And then I wanted to make a note for Mr. Lau that all of those tickets only show what is outstanding. They don't show what's been paid and warnings.
Okay, well, pardon me, there
So no,
are, for example, number 1 is
the
all
other sheet
warnings,
that's in
yeah.
front of you.
Yep.
That sheet does, yes, that one that doesn't show what's been already paid or just warnings. It just shows what's outstanding.
So.
What she's talking about is this one.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would print out it would be a
Yes.
longer list if they were just warnings. It's just the ones that haven't been paid.
Just so then you know that.
Thank you, this one, yeah, this one is money, this one has some warning.
Yes.
And it's just like my first time, my first time in your traffic court is that I remain overwhelmed, and only you said in a small minor way that you would too, with the numbers and so forth. And once the court can facilitate the verification and condensation on some of this information, yes.
Well, let's do this.
I'm trying to do a one-day, sorry.
Let's see if we can get a trial on those tickets that you have a right to trial on that we know of right now. And then between now, we aren't going to be able to do more than 4 or 5 in a day anyway. We'll take a trial slot like we did today in a hearing time where we have a few hours to get through them all. And then there may be more after that because the only ones I have right now that I know you're eligible for trial are right here. After we go through all of these, we will be able to see what else you might have a right to a trial on. So we'll start with those.
I'm, of course,
So let's talk about a date for a trial where we've got some time. I'm going to look at our, we're already into the end of October.
Your Honor,
Yes, go ahead.
I am only once again constrained by the thought of early tomorrow morning 3 of the vehicles would be towed or so once again, it's back to the,
Let's get a trial date first. We're going to still talk about that issue, about the towing,
if
okay?
you would issue the block on the tow for these and all unlisted vehicles, at least we can all prepare ourselves properly
Let's-
for your trial.
Let's get the trial first,
Thank you,
and we'll
Your
go
Honor.
from there. I'm trying to remind myself, so I'm gonna have to take a moment to look. In my view, the sooner the better that we get some resolution of these issues. We don't have anything, we have community court on the 31st, Mr. Reynolds, that's a Thursday.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, what was the date proposed?
I'm
No
just
date.
looking,
Dates.
the rest of this week is challenging because I've got relief judges coming the rest of this week, and then I'm in that right use of power thing from Tuesday through Thursday. And then Friday's the judges conference. So this week is really problematic. But next week, we have,
About what?
I was gonna say, we conceivably have some time on Monday, but not a lot, not a big block of time, because we've got hearings all the way from, we have a little break, we have a little slot in the morning where we could do a little bit, but we've got a 9:30 that comes on with dispos, and then we've got jail, so things of that nature. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week are possibilities, but I need to look and see what my calendar looks like, and I may need to actually.
Your Honor, if I may, because of the very important election coming up and some of us are assisting in very significant ways, I would like to request that it be set after the federal election date.
That's a long way away.
So that would be November 5th.
I'd prefer not, I don't want to do that because I'm also, if I'm going to do that, then I have to think about what that means for towing of vehicles between now and then. And I don't want to be in a position where I'm looking off 2 to 3 weeks. If I'm going to do any kind of staying, and I don't even know that I will, but I don't want to have trials that are in the second week of November when we're only really in the third week of October right now. So I'm looking right now. And I may have to actually go back to my office and grab for some reason, I can't pull up my personal, my meeting side of my life doesn't
Next
pull.
week, we have that leadership summit on the 29th and the 30th.
So that's what you all are attending. That's probably why I'm not attending that
Oh, you're
one.
not?
No, I'm attending the one this week, right, use of power,
Okay.
but the city attorney's office is probably attending the 29th, is it 29th and 30th?
29th and 30th.
So why don't we look at the 31st, which is the afternoon of the 31st. We got community court in the morning, but we could very well do things in the afternoon of the 31st. I might have to go look at my meetings in another database, but I can do that briefly. I'll just go get my calendar. I'll be right back.
At the rate I have been progressing, I doubt it we'll be able to finish. I don't know if there's a time limit in the court on a Friday, especially. I doubt it we'll be able to finish by 5.
I'm progressing very slowly,
Only
Judge.
because of my shortcomings in understanding some of the stuff.
This is the greatest trial ever.
November 4th is wide open.
There's some pain
I'm not going to get too
associated
caught
with
up in the election. I'm sorry to you, but there's too many other competing issues for me to be delaying cases for.
For some of us, the 5th is bigger than anything else right now.
I get you, but it's.
But thank you, Your Honor.
I'm going to delay for health. If someone has a doctor's appointment, I think that's legit. If someone.
Yeah,
has
that is.
their
Your
problem.
Honor, parking services is transitioning between systems, and the whole system's going to be down from the 30th of October to.
We switch completely from G2.
Yes. But the new system should be up on the 4th. I'm not seeing any hearings scheduled right now for the afternoon of the 8th. And given the fact that Mr. Lau is okay with setting it out a little bit longer, I'm okay with that too. I don't think that's too lengthy.
All right, then before we get to that then, so if we are talking about November 8th as the trial, and I'm looking at my calendar, my meetings calendar is clear, my afternoon docket is clear. That would be an easy day to schedule for everybody. The question then becomes, let's back up then. There, as I see it, there is one vehicle that I know of that is on the tow list. Because I see a scofflaw notice that was sent. This one is not one subject to any trials. This is a vehicle with a license plate number 6151264. And Catherine, if you'll look that one up and tell it, I might be able to find it before you, but let's see if one of us can find out what kind of vehicle that is. So it clues in parties here. It looks like it's, nope, I don't have anything other. So if you'll look that up in our system and tell me what vehicle that is, that'll help Mr. Lau know what we're talking about.
It really is.
There's no trial schedule for that, but it's on the tow list.
That's
And
it.
so,
Not shown. He demands public land
It's
for
like a
his
Ford
personal
truck.
use.
Ford truck. Does it say what year it is or what type? A lot of these are Ford trucks, so.
Looks like the one with, that's the one ending in 264.
Yes,
So that's the one attached to a trailer. I am horrible at identifying Ford
does it
trucks.
say what year or anything in there for the truck?
I think you're,
I have
that it's
pictures.
a Ranger, a Ford Ranger of some sort.
Okay, so that vehicle,
Referencing pictures, I
that vehicle's on the tow list. It's a valid license plate ticket from June 4th and parked within 5 feet of a driveway or an alley.
Sorry, this one is the one we were in court today.
So the 624,
That, based on that
I
picture,
thought we were in court over the 6618.
That's right.
yeah, but, based on the 264, the picture that she showed me, that is, the F-150 without the camper on top, which it was until I was stopped by both the police in not continuing.
615126.
So,
Hang on just a second. I hear what you're saying, but I want to pull it up.
okay, yeah, please, Your Honor.
So it's got a VIN number. Let's see if the VIN numbers are the same. A 1996 Ford truck.
F-150, yeah. That's the truck we are in court today, sir.
So it has two different license plates?
No, I don't know how that happened, but,
Okay.
whether they put it correctly or incorrectly, Your Honor, I would not know. But once
Okay.
you mentioned the year and so forth, I can even attest to it even without,
Okay.
and especially with the
The
picture.
1996 truck is the same one that's
So-
under today's
I was
hearing.
hearing from parking services, they think that they're either different cars, but there have been some allegations of perhaps moving license plates around. That could also cause some confusion with our systems, that a plate will be on one vehicle one day and a different vehicle the next day. So,
That is unfortunately poor speculation. I would not have to pay so much money with the city of Bowen, well, with the motor vehicle people to get tags and so forth. If I just want to recycle one plate forever or whatever,
It does show that they had the same
not how it
VIN
works.
numbers.
so
So those are the same vehicles.
yeah. Once again, it questions the accuracy of information that Boulder Parking has.
He's getting
But
worse.
we are proceeding to trial, so
can I ask a question, Your Honor?
Yes.
So, we know that he has eligibility to set at least 5 parking tickets for trial.
Right,
And we've perhaps identified the 8th as a date for that.
yes,
There are these potential, the court or the parking services might use its enforcement authority to impound vehicles, may or may not, near that property. If it turns out that those vehicles were improperly impounded, that the city always runs that risk of eating the cost. And I don't believe that they're going to be exercising their authority in some sort of flippant or unconstitutional manner. There's been nothing presented to the court about that yet. And so I don't wonder if just setting the parking tickets that we know of for trial on that Friday and then kind of take it as it comes. If there are any other impounds, then Mr. Lau can exercise his right to an impound hearing, and then it's the city's burden to prove that they were properly impounded. It makes me a little uncomfortable because it seems like what we're doing right now is thinking about
My God, you're right.
putting
Man
cities
up.
on enforcement actions.
I object to that.
Which I'm not sure.
Bullshit way
Well,
to go, Judge.
I'm not inclined
Stay
to
that.
do it on particular vehicles. I'm inclined to just find out what we have that could be towed. And it looks like, in addition to that vehicle with that 6151264 license plate that also has a VIN number that attaches to a 1996 Ford that appears to be the same as the 6386618, that vehicle has already been towed.
Yes.
That vehicle got towed. I released that vehicle from impound. It may have a different license plate, but it appears to be the same vehicle because it has the same VIN number. When I look it up in our database, 6151264 license plate number.
Tell me they towed some today during the hearing. Please tell me.
Sorry, Your Honor, the explanations could be very simple, which I would be surprised that the city attorney and border parking is not aware. Before you get emission pass, you offered temp tags, and depending on whether you're able to get it passed or whatever, county clerk would sometimes allow additional temp tags. That goes with any motor vehicle dealers, so it's not just a county clerk thing. It is the same vehicle, and there's no ifs or ands or buts. It's just that it had different temp tags, which is permitted by law and granted by Colorado Department of Revenue type of guidelines. So once again, it just goes to question the accuracy of border parking database. But once again, Your Honor, we are proceeding to trial. So
Not going to trial on that one because the dates those tickets are already too far beyond the 14 days. So those tickets are all issued on June 4th.
yeah, but
And I'm looking at the pictures right now.
it is the same, but without the camper.
But it also has a picture of the license plate. It's got the temporary tag on it,
Yeah.
6151264. So your suggestion that somehow they got it wrong, they took a picture of it and put it right on here of that same vehicle,
No.
with that plate on it. And then the other one that we have for the different, with a different plate number.
No, you showed me earlier
Well, this
already.
is what the 6618,
Yeah, we know.
I showed you 24, so.
Yeah, 618. 618 has
So
the,
here
has the,
is
618 has the,
6264,
Yeah.
so that's this one, and you want, so this is.
yeah, 618
So you're saying,
had the camper that was moved from one trailer to facilitate the code enforcement thing onto there, but both the police stopped me from doing, that was in
so
my
that's a separate
earlier.
issue.
So that's why we have two entries. It is the same vehicle. I already attested to that. Just one has.
Let's
camper on-
have just the disputes and stuff.
Oh, sorry, Your
Through me. I understand what we're talking about over there, but I'm going to have the discussion because otherwise we got too many voices and we don't have.
Sorry, my apology.
It's all right. But Yeah, so I just satisfied my own curiosity that the ticket that was issued for the 1996 Ford truck with one license plate number of 615 1264 is on the exact same vehicle as one that had a license plate of 638 6618, which we just had the hearing on. So there's two separate temporary tags. Now, I'm not going to get into whether those are valid or not. I'm just saying that there are two separate temporary tags for the same vehicle. So that's clearly for the same vehicle, a vehicle that's already been towed, impounded and released from impound with different license plate numbers. Doesn't mean that those amounts aren't still due and owing on those tickets, but it doesn't make sense for that vehicle to be towed again.
Sorry, it makes sense or?
It does not make sense for it to be towed again right at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
However, we still have to address that question that Mr. Reynolds has drawn out in its, which is, as of right now, I've asked, and these parking services has agreed to not tow your vehicle through the end of the day. They have not committed anything else, nor have I committed anything else. And
Sorry.
I have now found that the tow was proper. Part of the reason I asked him to hold off was because if I was going to find that the tow wasn't proper, if there was actually a valid permit and there was errors that were created by parking services, then I didn't want to be in a position where the city had towed a bunch of vehicles when it shouldn't have. And now you have the expense, we have the Marv's expense, and the city's reimbursing you for these unnecessary expenses. I no longer have that concern. I believe the tow was valid. I don't believe that there was a permit that prevented the issuance of those citations. So that's what I tried to make clear at the end of the hearing, is that this legal argument that you've put your facts on is no longer one that I'm going to engage in. They had the right to issue the tickets. You didn't have a permit that was displayed. So the tow was proper, which means that if they decide to tow other vehicles, including this one again, which I don't want to have happen, it's already been towed once, but they legally would have the right to tow it again because there's still an unpaid balance on these tickets that were issued. And they haven't been paid and they haven't been addressed. And so that's where we stand with respect to that part of this equation. And I want to get some clarity on that because I'm not going to drag this out indefinitely simply to allow you to kind of continue to not be responsible for these vehicles. You have a lot of vehicles, and you yourself can't even seem to keep track of all of that you have out there. And now you have some temporary tags on them. Perhaps they're valid through a period of time. But I'm concerned that you're going to continue to get citations and that you're going to have and you're going to have citations that are unpaid that you're not going to address. And so I'm not inclined to give much more of a stay or even ask parking services to hold off much longer. But I want to give you a chance, with you knowing that now, to tell me what you're going to do about all this, because you got a bunch of tickets that have been unpaid and vehicles that are parked that could get towed. At least one that I
Yes.
know because it was towed and it still sits there with a.
This is the question I
balance.
want to answer.
And you paid $100 towards that.
What is your
And so
plan?
I've given you a little bit of grace from the 11th till today, but you still have a balance owed on that one, which is $355. And actually, if I add the other ticket on, which is the other two tickets on, it's really more like $500 for that one vehicle because you got tickets in June with that vehicle, and then you got tickets again in August with that same vehicle. Just different license plates. So what are we going to do here, Mr. Lau?
So I thought the purpose of the trial on now suggested as November 8th was to address some of these things. And I definitely commit myself to the court that I want to have even all these things addressed even before that date. So I simply, once again, in addition to this, I have the code enforcement commitment and so forth. So I simply ask for Your Honor to issue the block on any towing until September the 8th, because at that point, everything will be crystal clear.
I think it's crystal clear now. I think it's crystal clear now. You're just exercising your right to trial on some of these, but it's crystal clear that I don't see that there's any permission that was granted to you to have your vehicles parked without complying with the ordinance for campers and trailers.
You lost, you will lose
There
again.
isn't an issue in my mind that the other vehicles are on the tow list appropriately, so they could be towed anytime. The issue really is in your hands as to how you're going to deal with it to try to keep them from getting towed. And
The one of me cannot possibly outbalance the 12 of, 12 plus PMOs from Boulder Parking. So, and with, with some of it on, once again, on the T2 list and so forth, it's simply humanly impossible for me to address it from this time until the strike of midnight tonight, because that's when your block of the toll will expire. And so, Your Honor, I simply ask for that time extension to be issued by you, so we can actually address all these things the actual vehicles prior to trial, but all the outstanding other things on trial date on the 8th.
Mr. Rounds, you want to be heard on that?
Your Honor, the city would request the court not issue any sort of stay on further enforcement actions. I think with the intention behind city manager's office trying to get Mr. Lau a permit, that kind of created some confusion and didn't accomplish what it was intended to accomplish, and kind of further delays, I think, will only further delay the inevitable. And so we would request the court not issue a stay on further enforcement action. Obviously, if we take enforcement action, Mr. Lau has due process for us to prove that enforcement action comported with the city code, comported with the Colorado and US constitutions. So that would be his avenue to address any wrongs. But I think if the court inserts itself into this situation, we're just going to kind of be right back here, like later on. We're just delaying the inevitable with trying to get these issues sorted out. And I think the best folks to sort them out are right now, unfortunately, is enforcement.
Okay. So I looked up just one case, one of these that was not on this list. And there was a scofflaw notice that was mailed on October 16th for that one, or a pickup list letter that was sent on September 26th that now is on the tow list as of October 16th. So there's more vehicles than just the ones that are here that are on the tow list.
Which one is that, Your Honor?
It's a 2009 Ford pickup with a VIN number that ends in 56744. And it has a current license plate, a temporary plate, 6379675. It may be a Ranger. Because I think Catherine, when she looked through some of the tickets, it's a Ford Ranger, but it's a 2009.
So that's sorry, Your Honor, so that is the 6505765?
$6379675. It could be the same if you've been working with the one I have is 6505765 is an Isuzu box truck. At least that's what Catherine said when she looked it up. But 6379675 is a Ford Ranger, a 2009 Ford Ranger. That's just one of the vehicles, but it's got a $320 balance. A courtesy letter was sent on September 5th. A pickup letter was sent on September 26th. It's now on the tow list. My point being is there are a lot of vehicles that are on the tow list. Mr. Reynolds' point is a good one.
Okay.
and I want you to just hold on for a moment and listen to this, Mr. Lau, so you hear it.
Yes.
Mr. Reynolds' point is a good one, which is that when the city manager's office entered into this process with sending letters to you or suggesting that, or sending emails to you in response to your requests, legally it had the right to do so because that's what 7624C provides, is that the city manager can issue a permit. But it perhaps did so in a way that wasn't conducive to a resolution of all these cases, because it becomes clear that granting one permit was perceived by you as granting a specific license to just continue to have all of your vehicles parked out on that street without license plates, without permits, in violation of the inoperative rules and perhaps in the abandoned vehicle rules. All of these rules that in your mind were stayed because of one email that was sent. And that is not helpful, nor is it helpful for me to get too involved in this process that is really between enforcement and you once certain cases get beyond the court's process of issuing these letters.
Hallelujah.
The only caveat I say to that is that those letters, we all probably can agree, were sent to a Dumont address. And it may be that the defendant didn't get them. That is not an excuse, because it's up to you to make sure that every vehicle that you register has the correct address. And when that address changes, that address is updated with the Department of Motor Vehicles. People in the parking office can only be responsible for sending notices to an address that is accurate and that it's been given. And we can't be out there trying to figure out if someone's moved. So with that in mind, and with the idea that the court deliberately wanted to give Mr. Lau an opportunity to come in today and be heard on this permit question, I've now determined that question. I'm going to delay for 2 days. I'm going to ask parking services to delay for 2 days. And then that'll give you time to figure out how you're going to get your vehicles off the tow list. And that means paying citations. And that's it as far as the court's concerned, is taking care of paying citations. I will say that I will give the same type of courtesy to you as I have given to others who have vehicles that are on the tow list, that when a person comes to the court and has a significant resource to pay in connection with a vehicle that is on the tow list, if that person makes a good faith payment and in a decent amount on a vehicle, I will ask and put in an order to delay the towing of that vehicle for a certain period of time so that that person can be on a payment plan. But I don't do that for very long, and I need to have a belief that that person's actually going to pay on that payment plan, and that's why I require a good faith payment in advance. And usually it involves someone who's coming in and saying, mea culpa, my fault, I had all these tickets, I didn't take care of them. Judge, what kind of relief can you give to me? And I'm willing to pay them on a regular basis as soon as I get my paycheck for X, Y, and Z. So I'm not going to do it on the basis of, well, Judge, I want you to delay until the middle of November so I can have some more trials. That I'm not willing to do. When someone comes to me and they're willing to accept responsibility for outstanding tickets and they pay towards those, I will do a do not tow order, even though it's not anywhere in the code for me to do that. I will do that to eliminate the possibility of any person having the circumstance of saying, I'm willing to come to the table and take care of this, and then they just have their vehicle towed, even though they're willing to be accountable and provide some payment. So 48 hours, that means.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
The payment and the toll and, the payment and the possibility of the court reducing the payment and so forth, I thought that would be addressed at the trial on November 8th.
I'm not waiting till November 8th to decide the issue of staying payments.
So
you got a right to trial on a couple of tickets.
Yes,
but not on every single. This is the same thing that I heard you argue during the trial about the permission that was given by the city manager, was if the judge sets a case for trial, everything else is stayed. I want to make crystal clear, because I might schedule 2 or 4 tickets for trial, it doesn't mean that all 17 vehicles who have outstanding violations on them cannot be towed for the violations that are outstanding. It means that those tickets are getting a trial date. That's all that it means. It doesn't mean that parking services cannot go and tow vehicles that are on the tow list. I don't want you interpreting these things in a way that's most beneficial to you and isn't even close to what I'm saying.
Your Honor, I hear the dates. I can't quite comprehend some of the context of the thing. But however, I understand once again, we do have trial on November 8th.
And that is in connection
Yes,
with
with
4
the-
tickets. And I'm going to make really clear what those are about.
With 4 tickets and Your Honor, you said that you are willing to consider is it a 2-day, 48 hours type of no tow?
That's right.
So,
On all of the vehicles. That will give you a chance to digest what I found today, which is that this idea that city manager gave you permission to have all of those vehicles parked in violation was not what this permit gave to you. I'm going to give you a chance to digest that information and come up with a game plan so that you can avoid having them all towed. And the easiest way to avoid having vehicles towed is to pay the balance owed. I'm not saying that you're going to come up with all that in a 48-hour period.
means I was really not able, but that was the last call. Your Honor, I just would like the court to, instead of making it at the end of the this would be October 23rd, just to make it at the end of October 28th. So that let me a little bit more ample time to digest the information and also be actually having a real physical time that I can actually do something, move the vehicles, unload, bring it,
To where?
Donate wherever. All those things takes a little bit of time, but together they take a much more time than 2 physical days.
I recognize that, but that's why I wanted you and Mr. Reynolds to talk, because if
We tried, however, we did not have the benefit of a complete list. And of course, as it turns out, the 5 is actually 4. But then, thanks to Your Honor, you were able to, discover more. And also, you did say your court staff would be able to compile more.
to some extent, if there is a registered owner listed in the Department of Motor Vehicle database for all these temporary tags, then they can go in and update our system to show that.
And Your Honor, I believe that also helps validates my request for October 28th, because that would definitely allow the court staff sufficient time. So there will be no, oh, I thought this was on this list. No, it's not on this list. It's just an early expired temp tag or whatever. So that actually allows great clarity, which we don't have absolute clarity right now, Your Honor.
Mr. Reynolds, you want to be heard on that?
Your Honor, I understand the court's, I actually wanted to ask a question of the court in terms of the stay of towing for 2 days applies to any type of tow, not just scofflaw.
Right. I want to give, I wanted to give Mr. Lau a hearing today so that I could at least hear the evidence surrounding that argument he raised with us on October 11th, which was I'd been given permission, which he believed, or whether he believed or not that he had permission on all of the vehicles that were parked in this area was the issue. And I've made clear that he had no permission because he didn't exercise that permission with the permit.
And so totally understand the court's position about that. We would ask the court not lengthen that period beyond the 2 days. It's difficult for this city to believe, while Mr. Lau is a perfectly nice individual, to believe his assurances that anything is going to change. Mr. Lau assured me that all of the junk surrounding the property would be gone in September, and it's all still there. So I think that these kind of like delaying things that he's asking for won't accomplish anything. And so I would ask if we just keep it at the 2 days, that starting on the morning of the what is it, the 24th, that we could then resume normal enforcement operations at the property. But we would ask the court not to impose anything longer.
Okay. I've heard from both sides on this. I'm going to stick with the 23rd, basically through the end of the day on the 23rd, which means starting at 12:01 a.m. on the 24th, if they have the legal right to tow any vehicle, then they can exercise that right to tow that vehicle. These citations were issued a long time ago. Many of them, some of them more recently. Those are the ones that are going to trial on November 8th, but everything else is pretty old. And we've been on a situation where we've been delaying for the last 10 days of doing anything. So there has been some opportunity over the last 10 days. So 2 more days, but it does give you the opportunity, Mr. Lau, to deal with the vehicles that are parked that may be subject to tow, number one, and deal with the outstanding balances on those. And although I don't typically have a parking docket, if you come and, that's what I was going to get to next. If you come and see me,
By emailing BDES or physically?
come here physically,
I'm sorry?
come here physically, and I'm looking at the calendar. On the 23rd, by the 23rd, and it would have to be the 23rd.
October 23rd, you mean? Okay. Your Honor,
2 days from now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick look at my calendar, make sure I'd be available to speak with you, but I'm going to give you even more than I've given to anybody else when I'm in this situation. Is if you come to see me at 3:30 p.m. on the 23rd, Mr. Reynolds, you can be here if you choose to or not. I think I'm going to leave that right use of power meeting early so I can be here at 3 o'clock anyway, because I think you and I have a scheduled commitment that day. At 3:30, if you come and you have resources to pay some of these citations that are subject to you, or for the vehicles that are subject to being towed on the scofflaw list, we can address that. I can't address inoperable vehicles. I can't address abandoned vehicles, those types of things. Those are potential pitfalls for you where your vehicle could be towed because you're not in compliance with that part of the city code. But on the scofflaw list alone, which I do have some authority over, which is if you've paid a certain amount of your balance that day, I'll put you on a payment plan for the rest. All right. So and in the meantime, I'm going to ask our team to try to identify all of these that are, see if we can get customer names on them. I'm looking at you, but not just you, Catherine, but we'll get others involved with this so that we can get your name attached to any of these license plates that it should be attached to. And I'll be in a better position then to articulate what I'm willing to do for you. So if you want to come at 3:30 on the 23rd, I'm going to put it down in my calendar that I'll expect to see you.
Yes, Your Honor, but so that I also can prepare myself properly, both financially and otherwise. On October 23rd at 3:30, when I showed up, will the court have a more compiled list?
Yes. And if I have it sooner, do we have an email address for you?
Yes,
I think we do, right? So if I have it sooner, we'll send it by PDF to you, so you'll have it. And I'm going to ask our staff to get on it tomorrow and see what they can do.
Yeah, the compiled list is the problem.
People are bending over backwards to keep you from having all your vehicles towed.
Not you having a junkyard on the street. It's clearly the court's
At the end of the
problem.
day, most likely it is my misunderstanding or misreading on the city manager's permit. And the court has decided on that already. So there is not much more that I should say or need to say. However, Your Honor, I believe if we just asking for, I trust that the court staff will be able to compile some list that they will not be subject to this or that. However,
When people put a temporary plate on a vehicle, if it's done and it didn't have a plate on it before and it's done a week ago, you can't expect the court to know who the registered owner of that vehicle is that
Sorry.
quickly. We gotta
Your
run
Honor,
our
that's-
system.
No, that's not my point at all. Once again, maybe I'm rehashing my previous plea is to have it set for the Monday because I can still come in on Wednesday, don't get me wrong, Your Honor, but that will at least eliminate any uncertainty whether with the court staff great assistance and effort on any uncertainty on what is scaffolding or abandon or whatever that is subject to this.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to ask for anything unreasonable because of Your Honor, earlier you already said in several days your court staff would be definitely able to. But of course, that way, once again, we have clarity and certainty. Whereas right now we do not, and maybe on Wednesday, 3:30, maybe we still may not have
We may have more clarity then.
more clarity. Thank you, Your Honor.
Absolute, I don't know. It'll depend on who these vehicles are registered to and things of that nature. But we'll share that with you as soon as we have it. And I will talk to our staff about getting all of it done and emailed to you.
Aww.
Catherine, we want to get a good email address for him so that we put it somewhere in our system. In the full court case, we should have it.
If I can speak, sir, I have laude signs@gmail.com.
DESIGNS, yes.
What's GMS?
Sorry, Gmail.
Okay. And so it's LAUDE signs, SIGNS?
DESIGNS, yes. Thank you.
Louddesigns@gmail.com.
It's the same one that I've received.
Okay, we've
For all
got
your
it.
design-
So look for that. It may be next Tuesday, but we'll see. We'll see what they can do.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. Okay, hopefully I'm clear. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna put in the order. I think everybody from Parking Services is here and heard what I've said, but I'm gonna try to put that order in and have one of our staff members in all of the cases that we know belong to Mr. Lau, and then we're gonna do the research on the others to see if those get attached, and then I'll subsequently put in that same order that not to tow, and show that additional courtesy. You're getting more courtesy than most would get in connection with towing of vehicles, but I'm trying to avoid a bunch of vehicles getting towed up to Marv's and not having any good resolution on what happens next. So you play a big role in that.
No, I appreciate that very much, Your Honor. This is only my second time here. So I truly appreciate the courtesy extended, not only by the court, but, in a lesser way, even by Mr. Reynolds.
Good, okay. All right, thank you all for being here this afternoon.
Thank you,
Thank
Your
you,
Honor.
Honor.
5:02.
Well, there you have it. The greatest trial in history. At least the greatest tow and ticket trial in Colorado that you've ever seen. I'd say that. I think that's a fair assessment. The judge is a nice guy. I liked him. He stood up for the bearded dragon. He does let Falco get away with too much. He does. I'm not gonna lie. And I see his heart's in the right place here, but this is just straight mamby-pamby, too nice BS. And the prosecutor is the same way. He came around, and the prosecutor's a nice kid. He is. But he kept saying, well, I'm uncomfortable with. I'm like, stop goddamn saying you're uncomfortable. There's a suggestion as to how to proceed. You object to it. I object. It sucks. I don't think we should do it that way. Do it over my objection if you want to, Your Honor, but I'm not on board. Get some stones. It's going to lose my mind. He's a nice kid. He's not a stupid kid. The judge is a nice guy. He's not, but honestly, thank you. Thank you. But honestly, they'd be doing this guy a favor. Me on the bench would do him a favor. I'd be like, we're towing all this crap now. We are going to tow all of it. All of these vehicles are junk. They have no value. We are going to tow them and we're going to have them destroyed. You don't have the right tags on them. You don't have all this shit. We're taking them. They're going to get smashed down. There's going to be value on it. And you know what? You're going to end up owing less money because you have a pile of junk and you are accruing more in fees than all that crap is worth. All those vehicles that as far as I can tell, except for the BBT. Now that's something special. Who doesn't like a BBT, you know? But aside from that, it's all crap. It's not worth anything. Its main value is scrap value. There is no market for a 26-year-old truck with a 1970s camper attachment on it. There is no market for that. Do everyone a favor. The neighbors in the neighborhood, Mr. Lau himself, my sanity, everyone. And say, we're not doing squat. All this garbage is going. If you don't have enough sense that there comes a point when society says, nope, you can do all this stuff. You have 40 acres and you want to make a junkyard out there. That's fine. When you die, someone will have to clean it up. But until then, we'll probably leave you alone about it. But this guy's got a house in a residential area. If I was his neighbor, I would be irate. I mean, I'm irate anyway. Like, that's my baseline. But that sure as hell wouldn't help. Like, I could have been suckered by this guy, and he does a little bowing thing, and he has some good manners. He has that sort of charming, deferential Asian vibe, which is very likable. But in substance, he's an a-hole. That's what it is. And that thin veneer wears off real fast. I would if I was sitting on the bench, I would be like, "Oh, I want to help this poor guy" for about 30 seconds. And then I find out that, you know, he's got 7 new cars on the list and he didn't tell me about it. Now you're just making a jerk out of me. They're all going. They're all going today. It's open season on your junk. Well, let's see what happens next on the next installment of Mr. Lau Has Parking Problems. Thanks for coming out. Behave yourselves. You know I'm not going to bail you out. Even though I really owe y'all for sticking with me on this. It's Alyssa's fault, but I did run it. I'll see y'all soon.